OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30 and it's 2023. A very happy new year to all of you, and I hope you all had a good time. This is our first day back as a group. Shane, how are you?
Good morning and happy new year to all.
You're alive?
Just about, hanging in there.
Yeah. What's the Monaghan New Year like?
Well, we were making jokes in a couple of our pre-Christmas shows about, me being potentially kicked out of the house from all the nights out, and close enough to the truth.
It happened in the end, yeah.
They've kept me back to Dublin, so here I am. But I had a busy one, plenty of nights out, and January is going to be decidedly dry, I would say, for me.
Were you queuing at midnight on Christmas Day?
Didn't go in. You know what? That was the one night I was mature, Ger. I decided, you know what? For one night, I'll be an adult here and not go into town. So, no, I was wise. I had plenty of other nights out, let me tell you, but here we are, starting to recuperate, and the body is back to normal. The body's crying, actually.
I was just looking back at my sleep stats. 4.5 hours sleep last night, because it's always difficult the first night you're back. And the only good night's sleep I had over the whole of Christmas was the 10.5 hours I got by going to bed at 9:30 on Christmas Day. The day was done. I've seen enough.
9:30 on Christmas Day?
My work is finished in the evening, yeah. I was in bed at 9:30. It was great.
That's impressive. That's remarkable.
I was not queuing outside a nightclub, waiting, banging on the doors to open.
As in falling asleep on the couch at 9:30?
No, I went straight to bed. Like, well, you reach a point where you're like, I could just do an Irish goodbye here in my own gaff.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And that was the only good night's sleep I had over the whole period.
I couldn't sleep last night either. I think the body's going to take a while to get back onto it. You feel it's like a Christmas jet lag, where the body's like, nah, you're not going to sleep just yet. New Year's Eve was a very, very late one for me, you see, so the body is slowly going to recuperate. I think as each day into January.
What does that mean? I presume that means 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Really? Like,
say the least. Yeah.
Oh, to say the least, you kept going.
Yeah.
You had a rollover.
We didn't even have a roller. No, we weren't even drinking. We were just sitting up talking crap and having fun, and the drinking kind of stopped reasonably early. But just when you lose track of time completely, that's what happened essentially on New Year's Eve. So we had a lot of fun.
There, and the viewers and listeners are living vicariously. Colin, you've been curiously silent for you.
I know. Well, obviously you talk, but Happy New Year, Ger. Happy New Year, Shane. Happy New Year to everyone out there. I say last night is the worst night of the year for sleep, collectively. You just can't sleep well. Like, it's the worst fear.
This is the Monday.
It's the worst fear. But that's the only good thing about this week. It's Tuesday already.
Yeah.
Also feels extremely early to be back to 3rd of January. I feel this should be a 5th or 6th job. But look, it's great to have everyone back. And we've a great show today.
I feel like we're not alone. I drove up from Monaghan this morning as opposed to staying in Dublin. But the traffic there's people moving. There's people on the roads this morning.
Yeah.
They were thereabouts.
We've everyone in here even.
Well, everybody's
there's
back.
Slow, steady. Yeah. There's usually kind of a gradual return to normality, and I feel like next Monday will be the proper return.
No, everybody's back.
Everyone's here, like.
Yeah.
The schools
are back on Thursday, so.
This Thursday?
Yeah.
Are they right?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I found that out through a guest last night, a potential guest, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be back to the gym, lads.
Thursday 'cause of school.
It's all ahead of you, lads. You'll know intimately the diary and the dates of the schools. Anyway, it's a stunning opening to our new year. Hi, everybody.
I watched It's a Wonderful Life on Christmas night.
Oh, were you bawling your eyes out?
No, but it's poignant.
What? You weren't crying?
No, but
what kind of a heartless bastard are you? Not crying?
I don't tend to cry at obvious moments in films, but I cry in subtle ones.
Suzu's Petals didn't get you.
Yeah, no, it got me. It was top 5 moments from the movie for sure. He was some actor, wasn't he? God almighty.
Who's this?
Pathos.
Oh,
Jimmy Stewart. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, he was amazing.
Dropping the hot takes on us this morning.
Messi's a good footballer as well. So
he was so good. Like, he had pathos in abundance.
Tom Hanks is pretty good at acting as well.
Yeah,
what I watched
Johnny
as well.
Sexton good at rugby.
Yeah.
Knives Out. Those two films, watch those. They were very good now.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And then I went on a bit of Daniel Craig binge by going back to Layer Cake.
Oh, I see it knocking around. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I saw the first half hour and I was like, I've seen this movie already. It's just Snatch and Lock, Stock.
But presumably better.
It's grand. It's Matthew Vaughn's involved though. He was involved with Guy Ritchie for those 2 movies. And they did, what was that, Rock and Rolla around that same era.
Yeah.
And I thought Rock and Roll was excellent. But this, I was like, after half an hour, and I was like, I know what's going to happen here. I'm going to leave this. And also, he physically changed so much, Daniel Craig, over the years. He was quite slender then.
Well,
he really built up for
his
Bandy.
somehow on my social media, the guy who's responsible for his amazing body is all over now. I don't know, is it my Twitter feed or my Instagram feed? It's like something has happened where it's nothing but self-help now. Maybe because I've clicked on too many of them sometimes. Maybe because I'm so desperate for help.
It's January, so you're going to have to.
He's physical perfection.
But this was even in December. It was already. Maybe they were preparing me for the way of like there is but one true way, and Elon Musk is going to lead me to the mediocrity that.
Your algorithm will help you in 2023.
Ooh.
Are you the same age as Daniel Craig?
Oh, your algorithm will not help you. Avoid the algorithm.
Same age as Craig.
Delete. I don't know what age he is.
Physical perfection, Daniel Craig.
I'll find out what age he is, lads.
He's
amazing.
He's your ideal man, is he?
Yeah.
He's 54.
Oh.
Don't be saying that about Ger. Jesus.
Wow,
You're
54. That means you have so much more time.
You are going to pay for that, Colin.
So much time to catch up with him.
First day of the year.
Physically.
I ain't going to forget that.
You should be a brick S
the
house
last day of this year, I will remind you
S house.
how much a prick you are. Anyway, sorry, not allowed to speak. I'm not allowed to say that word on the radio.
But
it's
you just did, though.
It's 7:36. Did you watch on Colin Kuhn? If you haven't,
No, I heard it's very sad.
you can get it on. You don't cry though. So
No, I do cry.
It's a Cork
You
thing.
missed about it.
I watched Apollo 13 on Christmas Day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you cry at that?
I was
Why are you
tearing up
obsessed
at
with
the
people
end.
crying?
And I knew what the ending was as well.
You don't have to cry to show emotion, you know. There's different ways to do it. I have to always do that.
What's nothing wrong with crying?
No. Oh, did you watch that volcano documentary on Netflix?
Okay, this
the
is
New
good.
Zealand one. That was also brilliant.
Here's what's coming up at the show between now and 10 o'clock. Performance rankings. We're already a minute late for them because we got waylaid. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 8:05. Sports pages at 25 minutes past 8. Sports news with Cathal at 8:35. Harriet Pryor talking about Liverpool at 8:50. And Jack Langston on the darts at 9:15. But at 7:37, it is time for the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
It is officially World Cup year now. We've been talking about it non-stop since the Japan game and the All Black game 4 years ago. But now we're entitled to do it every day if we want to.
I hadn't thought about that. I thought you were talking about the Women's World Cup, but also the Rugby World Cup.
The rugby, the one that has been like this kind of dread weight around our necks, where there's this impending sense of doom, and then lo and behold, first day out, Johnny Sexton breaks his face.
It actually it feels a lot more normal to be talking about it on January 1st than December 31st because it's the calendar year. You're like, okay, we can get away with it.
But this isn't, and the Leinster PA is not in any red, green, or amber in this either.
Yeah,
they haven't thrown it in. We
did we consider that?
Controversy.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah, we
let that go.
We actually didn't say it, but no. On this, the Mondayest Tuesday of all time.
I am interested in what our viewers think about the latest controversy surrounding. Is it the Wolf Tones? It is the Wolf Tones.
Yes. Celtic Symphony.
Banjo strumming troglodytes was how they were referred to by Rory Keane in the Daily Mail this morning. It's like wow, that's a fiery. But is that what people think?
That's off the band. That's the opinion of the band.
The band, yeah.
I mean,
are you a big Wolf?
I enjoy the Wolf Tones. I really do. I enjoy their songs.
Are they musically good?
They're musically talented for sure.
Are they? Because I remember a couple of times some people not great who'd be like the halftime at Croke Park, for example, with some bad songs written specifically for the occasion. North, South, East and West Gaelic games is far the best. That one has stuck with me for my entire life.
That's a classic.
I can't remember. I think it was some kind of mix and gathering of people who weren't normally bandmates. But
I think a bit of trad gets people in the mood. Irish people like a bit of trad, and especially.
But are they good trad?
The Wolf Tones are top tier trad.
Are they really though?
Yeah,
are they like proper? You know.
I'm going to get some trad police in the comments now telling me that they're crap. But no, I enjoy them. Their songs. Go on, you have an opinion, Colin?
No, quiet. Look what's in the range.
Sorry, you're putting up your finger. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to get that in there. Give us your views.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah, at Off the Ball on Twitter, at Off the Ball AM specifically if you want to talk to us. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, and of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Happy New Year to you all. Let's get into the misery of Spurs and Liverpool.
I love it. On this, the first performance rankings of 2023, we will start with Tottenham and Liverpool. We'll start with Tottenham, will we? Might as well. Spurs, we thought that Stevens Day draw against Brentford was the start of their comeback. That was them. A nice little 2-2 draw against Brentford, who were pretty decent. But that home defeat to Villa on New Year's Day, the home fans booing as well, Antonio Conte coming up with his excuses after the match. It wasn't great, was it? Conceding at least twice in 7 consecutive league matches for the first time since November '88. That's a ridiculous stat. You don't see that, and it's scarcely believable as well, because they're constantly coming from behind in games. So any games that they do actually manage to pluck a point or 3 out of, it's coming from behind, and that's not a hallmark of a solid team, is it? I mean, it's Spursy. Now, I'll give them credit here. I'm looking at the names that were missing against Villa on New Year's Day. Kulusevski, Richarlison, Bentancur. But Christian Romero was back from winning the World Cup, and Hugo Lloris. Well, I mean, to call that a howler, I think it's fair enough.
Look, I think it was complete howler. Somebody else could have stepped in, but like Villa were...
it was a World Cup hangover howler.
Excellent in the second half.
They were.
I mean, look, he has been complaining incessantly about the situation at Spurs, constantly talking about other people's money. At some point that seeps into the team, right? At some point the team are like, am I not good enough for you, really? Am I that bad that you're desperately trying to replace me the whole time? Constantly complaining in the press? I don't know. I mean, we keep making the point, everywhere he goes he's won the league. So is something going to happen? Is something going to turn around? Are they going to find all the money they need? Is Harry Kane going to stay now that he hasn't won another tournament?
Yeah. I mean, lamenting the fact that they don't have a solid foundation after spending millions. Like they signed a lot of players for a load of money in the summer. I think they pretty much got most of his targets that he wanted, and now we're into January and he's complaining about this. Like, he strikes me as a guy who just doesn't want to be there. My brother-in-law is a season ticket holder there, and I was chatting with him after the Villa game. I was asking, was he part of the booing mob at full time? And he said, 100%. Because the reason is because he doesn't want to manage the club, and he's the wrong man for it. Because Conte wants experienced players. He doesn't want to build any sort of youth and establish them into the first team after a couple of years. He wants instant success. And I think with Conte too is, historically, he struggles with the busy schedule. When Chelsea won the league under him in 2016-17, they just had the league to focus on. He likes one focus, and he likes established players. He likes everything done for him, and then he can be himself. But he kind of struggles with moulding together different personalities and players in different stages of their career. And I was chatting to brother-in-law again, and he was saying like Poch has to come back. Like, Poch in the summer, it's ideal for him, because Conte strikes me as a guy who wants to take over the Juventus job or get another job again. But I think he's done with Spurs, and I think I've always questioned Conte's motivation at Spurs from the start, even when they were doing well. Do you remember the Burnley game at Turf Moor? He wasn't in that long, and he was basically saying,
well, I felt like he was leaving that week.
Yeah, he was like, I'm going to go. And he strikes me as a guy who's about 2 or 3 games away all the time from wanting to leave Spurs. And I don't think it will take much for him to do that.
Didn't they have their record-breaking opening to the season? It feels a long time ago now. And they still do have a really gifted, lavishly talented squad. I mean, it's going to take a miracle for us to finish top 4. I mean, it shouldn't really.
Look at the table, yeah. They're 2 off United, a game extra played, granted, but I mean, they're still on 30 points in 5th place.
There's a raft of teams who are 2 points apart at that stage, so there's no reason that they shouldn't. Spurs also started well under Nuno last season, and that tailed off spectacularly. I know, obviously Conte's on much more for Spurs, but he just strikes me as a guy who doesn't want to be there anymore, and he's not going to walk away, because that would be madness, because he's going to want to get his money. And I really do think he's kind of probing the board to be like, look, if you don't want me here. And he just strikes me as a guy who would rather move on. And I think he's a brilliant manager who's wrong for that club.
Bit of credit for Villa as well, to be fair, Ger. I mean, it was a good performance, and I was over in Villa Park for that Villa United game before the World Cup started, and it's probably no surprise that Unai Emery brings a new manager bounce. So while we take away from Spurs, we have to give credit to Villa for New Year's Day, because I mean, it was a good Villa performance. Especially the second half, they really kicked.
Not great in the first half, but better in the second half. But then they did lose to Liverpool, which no one's doing at the moment. What was going on? Did they have a good Christmas? Were they overindulging?
Bang into the red as well, Ger. So we might as well get into Liverpool, and not a nice morning to be waking up if you're a Liverpool fan, because if you're watching that match yesterday against Brentford, this 3-1 defeat, it's not just the result, it's the performance. They were crap. So much so that you had that triple substitution at half time where you had Elliott, Tsimikas and Van Dijk taken off, and it really was no surprise to see them all being taken off. Tsimikas was brutal.
Yeah, he tends every so often he has a game like that.
He's a howler.
He's a good player, but he throws that in every so often.
Yeah, and it's like, it took Andy Robertson, someone of his leadership, to come on and do anything. He was the one geeing them up. He created a few chances. The goal kind of came from his side as well. Like, it was just, I don't know. If you're looking at that Liverpool team at the moment and you're looking at their fixtures that are coming up, you're a bit concerned. Like, top 4 is a stretch. They're 15 points off Arsenal, 4 off United with a game more played. They need to finish.
I think they have time to turn that around. There's only 16 games played. There's a lot of the season left.
Like this.
But what struck me in Liverpool in the second half is that they have a lack of leaders. Like Robertson was the only standout option as captain. And when they went 3-1 down, he was trying to rally the troops. And it was interesting to see the different reactions. And he called this kind of unofficial huddle right after Brentford's third goal.
Yeah,
and Canate was just livid over the decision to allow the goal, which I thought was perfectly fine. Like, he just got shouldered out of it by Mbeumo.
Canate was terrible. Like, it was one of those games where very good players can have very, very, very bad games. But that was a 1 out of 10. That was a minus 1 out of 10. If you're L'Equipe, what are you doing there?
But it wasn't just the own goal and that mistake. It was just that
was enough.
It was individual and collective problem. But Brentford should have been 4-0 up at half time, like they did against Manchester United.
He got bullied for the goal. Like
totally,
that's a really bad sign, because it's like, it's not even just the game smarts not to be playing for the free kick at that point where all of a sudden, if you don't get it, you're screwed. It's just like the physicality, the not being able to use your own physicality in that situation. It
was moments though as well. Like even the Vissa goal that was disallowed, straight afterwards when Vissa scores the actual goal that is allowed a minute later, Alisson plays the ball short, which you never see him do. You never see him hit a ball out that badly. And then Harvey Elliott just jumps over it. He's like,
I don't think there was a problem with Alisson. No. I really don't. And they picked that up at half time and they were like, why is he doing that? I thought it was a perfectly fine play.
Why is Elliott jumped over it?
Exactly.
Yeah, Elliott, that was crazy. At that time, get a hold of the ball. Canate, I think, looked for the foul for the third goal because he lost track of the ball over his head and lost confidence, and he panicked. And what am I going to do now? I'm going to try and get the free. But if he was playing confidently, he would have done exactly the opposite and shouldered Mbeumo out of the way and started a counter-attack for Liverpool.
So the stat popped up about Trent being the joint most creative player in whatever period of time. Himself and De Bruyne have the same number of assists. I don't know how far back that goes. Is it 2 seasons, 3 seasons, however long it was, whatever the stat was. Like, his inability to defend for whichever the first goal, was it the first goal where he gets sucked in and is like looking at the ball over his head and is like,
this header, the second goal.
Sorry, second goal. It's a good header, isn't it? That's a surprisingly good header from there.
Yeah.
Maybe, I could have put a bit of pressure on the ball. Like, that's just a coaching issue. That's nothing to do with him being, like too good going forward or in the wrong position, like as a player. Like, he's actually a centre midfielder trapped in a right back. It's like, that's just bad coaching. He hasn't been coached enough to go, when this is happening, where are you supposed to be? Look, let's do that again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do that again.
Yeah, personal responsibility for Alexander-Arnold at this stage of his career. I mean, presumably he knows what the set piece coach wants from him, which is to get goal side. And I think in that instance he was caught between the winger and the forward.
He's obviously not being held accountable then. So it's
it's not showing that he's not, but maybe he is, but it's not showing.
Okay, but it's a collective responsibility. Sure, there's definitely he definitely has. What I'm saying is, you can't be taking him out of the team because he's obviously very creative. But whoever's fault it is, that needs to be fixed, and you can't like say that it's not somehow on the coaches to be pointing this out, going, why are you doing this?
We should again, though, on that, give credit to Brentford and what Thomas Frank has done, because Mbeumo and Vissa are two of the type of forward pairs that Liverpool hate to come up against, and that's without Ivan Toney in that Brentford attack as well. But Vissa, particularly in that goal that you mentioned, Ger, Trent was caught, but Vissa's movement was brilliant, and he was class the whole game. And Mbeumo got man of the match. I think he was excellent, got a deserved ovation when he was being taken off as well. And Klopp's comments after the game.
Yeah. Let's talk about this.
So we know he has excuses always. But like, what
a baby.
What exactly is he giving out about? You lads were saying before, he's given out about the third goal for one, which is ridiculous.
Do you have those quotes? I have them here. Like, it's crazy.
What was he saying?
Brentford create chaos with set pieces. When I say they stretch the rules, they do in offensive set pieces. Don't get me wrong, it's smart, but they do. If you single out all the situations, you could find 5 fouls, but because it's so chaotic, no one sees it in the end. Now, that does not look good in writing or verbally when you actually listen to him say it.
Well, he's such a bad loser.
He is, and we know this.
He's a notoriously bad loser, and it's one of the most enjoyable things in world sport, watching, if you're not a Liverpool fan, obviously, is watching the various ways that he finds to explain what's going on.
The pitch wasn't good.
That isn't actually the truth.
No. Now, he did acknowledge later on in that same paragraph that they were at fault for the goals.
Yeah.
You know, he did acknowledge that, but he always has to get something in there. But a lot of those, like Alex Ferguson used to do it all the time as well. Like, you know, he did always be a deflection tactic.
Is it the mark of a winner? It's the mark of a winner.
It's not the mark.
It's the mark of a bad loser.
It's the mark of a bad loser.
Yeah, a bad loser, but also a winner.
The greatest managers in the history of the game all seem to be bad losers.
Because they're so not used to losing.
I think this is all like a difference between cause and effect here. It's like, I'd say that there are loads of other bad losers who are also involved in football who aren't also great managers. Being a bad loser doesn't make you great.
No, but they do have it in common, the great managers of the game. Jose Mourinho being probably the biggest example of it. Like, he would definitely have come out and said this similarly when he was the peak of his managerial when he was the peak of his managerial prowess.
Apparently he's going to get in trouble for this one, right? The Liverpool manager was unhappy with Brentford's tactics at set pieces and said in an answer as to whether he had complained about it, yeah, but that's exactly the same as I would talk to my microwave. You get no response, it's always the same. Before the season, they gave us advice that the players have to be careful at this moment, set pieces, because the refs will have an eye on it. And you see these games and pretty much everything is allowed. It's always on the edge and they're using it. I mean, like, welcome to football, Jurgen. You're an incredibly experienced manager.
I think if you're talking to your microwave for starters, you're in trouble, aren't you?
I don't know why this is the Telegraph think that he's going to get in trouble for that. That was on BN Sports afterwards. He was saying that. I'm not sure that I buy the Carragher thing about, like, it's just the same as the Arsenal evolution where they became too technical. I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what putting Thiago in the team has somehow turned them into this. But it doesn't feel like that's what's happening here. It feels like it's just bad organisation. Bad organisation with set pieces. Like, that's not. I'd love to see the deep dive on the intensity stats, like the sprints and the distance travelled. Obviously, is the easiest one, but like more important, the high number of sprints. Like, is it Sadio Mane? Is it a combination of really good technical analysis from other teams working out what it is that Liverpool are doing and then saying, we're going to stop you doing that?
It's the lack of replenishment in midfield, isn't it? They haven't signed a midfielder since Thiago. And they badly missed Henderson last night, which isn't a good look because Jordan Henderson is not the player he once was. No. But they looked very depleted in midfield, quality-wise.
Mane is a fair point, I think. You're missing a guy there. I don't think Darwin Núñez is being hailed like Captain Chaos, as Jimmy Carragher calls him. He took his offside goal very, very well.
Oh, beautiful.
Last night.
Oh, Núñez isn't the problem. Like,
no,
Núñez,
he can't be the problem.
Fine player. Like, he misses chances, but
the goals will come for him.
The goals will come, yeah. But he's a good player. But they have far worse problems than that, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. But they are in the red, lads, on this performance rankings this morning. We move on to the other red. It's Ulster Rugby, and I feel like they've been in the red a little bit of late. Unfortunately for them, they led 14 points to 5 against Munster with 13 minutes left. You felt this is going to be a good day for Ulster. They're going to get it done. And then Ben Healy out off the bench for his first appearance since the win over South Africa back in November, and he does the business, gets the try, converts the try himself as well, and it's a 1-point win for Munster. A lot of happy Munster fans, no doubt, watching this morning, but we did want to put Ulster in the red, and I think rightly so, because if you read the comments from Dan McFarland, the Ulster head coach, after the match, he was not holding back, and he wasn't making excuses. This was not a Jurgen Klopp move from Dan McFarland. He said, we were terrible. I don't want to take anything away from Munster. That was a game where we decided our own fate. He points out the fact that they had the ball 11 times in the Munster 22 and lost it 10 times of those 11. That's just not good enough. He says the only time we held on to the ball for long phases, we scored a magnificent try. When they held on to the ball, they looked magnificent. Random chip kick when it's not on, turning over in contact, slow to break down. That was always going to come back and bite us. McFarlane not holding back, lads, and I think it's trouble time for Ulster.
I think one of the first things he said in the immediate post-match chat was we were careless, and by that we were without care, which is, that is damning indictment. And I think what Stephen Ferris is saying afterwards is like, that's all well and good, that's great, but you can only call out your players so often.
Yeah.
So now he's put himself under pressure by doing that, because they're not going to be happy with him.
This is chaos at the moment, because when you think about, like, they're a man up and they're winning the game against Leinster, and it's a big moment for them, and since then they've been pretty awful. Like, the mad comeback against La Rochelle, but the game is over.
First half,
like, the game is already over, so okay, great, you're able to do something when there's no pressure on you, and then a winning position against a team who are still finding their way at the moment. Munster aren't the finished version of what Munster are going to be at all. So we're going to talk to Quinny in 15 minutes in more detail about this, but they should absolutely be in the red. This is very close to them being back to basket case territory. That's if you're an Ulster Rugby fan, we'd love to hear from you this morning. Give us your thoughts. You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. You can get us at Off the Ball AM.
Yeah, trouble bent on for Ulster this Saturday away, and then the small matter of visiting La Rochelle, which could spell disaster for Ulster. So they're going to need a big performance there. So without doubt, Ulster in the red this morning on the performance rankings. We're going to go to the darts for our amber and put Gerwyn Price into the amber. It's definitely a mixed one. I think it deserves to be in the amber this morning because for anyone who watched Gerwyn Price's match the other day, he lost, needless to say, but he wasn't exactly enjoying the banter and crack and abuse, let's be honest, from some of the Ali Pele fans at the PDC World Darts Championship the other day. I think we've got a couple of photos as well, maybe of. So there he came out for one of the sets with ear defenders on. Now, he was just geeing up the crowd a little bit as well. He was making a point. You can see after, "I can't hear you." And clearly he couldn't hear because he's got these ear defenders. I think if he has any business sense, he'll come out with his own line of ear defenders, Gerwyn Price, at some point now. Look, he was one of the favourites for this tournament. He's the world number one. He was the number one seed. So he wasn't happy going down the way he was going down. And he ended up losing, I think it was 5-1 on sets as well. Like he hit a 180 as soon as he came out with the ear defenders on. He kept adjusting the ear defenders at different parts. They weren't comfortable. He took them off for the next set and just used the tiny little in-ear plugs. Now, I've put him in amber because I'll give him some credit. The abuse apparently in Ali Pali towards some of the players that Gerwyn Price gets a lot of it is quite difficult, and they have to listen to that, especially when it's... I don't think the players mind when it's really, really loud in there and there's constant chants and singing. It's when it gets a little bit dark or quiet and there's little in-between moments where you can actually hear what individual people are saying. Yeah. I think that's what Gerwyn Price doesn't like. So at different points you'll see Gerwyn Price with the ear defenders on, geeing up the crowd because he wants them to be louder, so we can't hear the individual people. Yeah. And
there's no tennis or rugby-like protocol or etiquette among the fans at crucial times when they're throwing the dart.
Yeah. And look, Gerwyn Price, I've been watching the darts constantly over Christmas, constantly, and the yeah Toure chant. I swear on my life, if I ever have to listen to that again, I don't know why it's reared its ugly head again at the darts. I guess it's good fun to do because everyone stands up and then sits down for Colo. But please stop it. Like, it's the same chants on repeat. You'd swear they just pressed a play track every night.
No Limits by Two Unlimited, is it? Is that the
chant?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Isn't it? Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Do they do the Colo part?
They do all of it, the whole lot. Sorry, I wanted to stop. I didn't want people to have to listen to the entire thing. But there are chants and moments of the darts in the crowd where you're like, Jesus, I can't think of anywhere I'd less rather be than there. But it looks like good fun.
I thought that was your shtick. I
definitely enjoy it, but it's that chant.
But you can't say I like a little bit of this hashtag bans, but not the rest of it. Is that not like? Is this not the raison d'etre of the whole thing?
I'm just pretending I'm mature. If I was there, I'd be in the middle of that.
Oh yeah, top off, swinging it round.
Yeah, and have a Monaghan jersey over my head.
Well, and some weird body paint spelling out something.
Yeah, no doubt.
Should we make anything of Price's comments afterwards on the Instagram story? Where he said, so frustrating, you play all year round preparing for this one tournament. So gutted I wasn't let play, presumably referring to the crowd. Good luck everyone left in. Not sure I will ever play this event again.
All that there.
All that.
Bit of lip from the Welsh.
So he's not going to play the World Championships as the world number one and the number one seed next season.
For which, by the way, there's £500,000 sterling for the winner.
All right.
And he's won it before, so I mean, he's not going to turn down that money. Okay. So yeah, put Gerwyn Price there. Look, give him a little bit of leeway. He got abused, but I mean, the ear defenders, a bit much, although hilarious. So thank you for that, Gerwyn.
Kieran O'Connor says, love the show, keep up the good work. Colin Foley says, Happy New Year, lads. Damien says, Happy New Year. Been working through Christmas and New Year's. Would have liked a little bit of OTB to start my day. Sorry, Damien, we're back now.
We had a bit of shows. Yeah, we had a bit of shows.
I got a text saying, God, you're very busy over Christmas and New Year's. There you go.
Yeah. Maybe we needed to premiere the stuff on YouTube so that Damien was getting his fix.
He would have been if he was subscribed to the channel.
There you go, subscribe to the channel. Slap down. Happy New Year to you too, Damien. From me anyway, but not from Colin.
Also from you, Damien.
Any insight on the club takeover of English clubs, Manchester United and Liverpool? Not yet. We'll get back to that later on in the week. Great to see the prevailing opinion of sports journalists feel Villa's win versus Spurs was because Spurs were poor, not because Emery gave Conte a tactical masterclass, says Barbalazza 83. 9 points from 15. Villa deserves something from the Liverpool game. Emery surely in contention for Manager of the Month. Don't want Manager of the Month awards. Don't. They're pointless. Joe Kinnear used to brag about having won 4 or 5 of them. in the different stages of his career, he did actually win little baubles of manager of the month. But
because you're in danger of losing momentum if you win manager of the month.
Which Ger believes in.
My
favourite
be afraid of that now.
My favourite comment column is New Year, New Ger, putting the young lads in their place as is necessary. Happy New Year, lads. Of course, Ger being 54, the same age as Daniel Craig.
You anchors are in trouble, I'm telling you. I'm coming for you. You can't possibly make yesterday about Trent. He was excellent, says Rory Marr. In fairness, says Nigel Gallagher, if Trent left the guy behind him free and he scored, he would have been criticised. Trent actually defended well in the last few games, I thought. I do think, though, that you've got to address the problems, and there are multiple problems here. Not being able to defend from set pieces, being scared of big lads lumping the ball in the box, that's not a good sign. Being scared of, the ball being punted over you because you're playing your high line, but everybody isn't quite on board with it. Van Dijk apparently has a hamstring injury, at least that's what they were saying in the aftermath of the game, so we'll see if he misses any game time, or if he was being punishment substituted, who knows.
Do you think they said that to
I don't
make
know.
it less of a story? Yeah.
Maybe.
Be legitimate.
Yeah,
it would make sense. We'll move on to the Green lads this morning. Evan Ferguson. I was up out of my seat when Evan Ferguson scored, I have to say, watching that Brighton Arsenal game the other day. The goal meant nothing in reality. Almost mounted a comeback. They got a second and then had a goal disallowed. But really, it was all about Evan. A wee step over for the first goal. He was involved in the third goal as well. I think that was disallowed. And he took his goal really, really well. He's just strong, 6'2", 18 years of age. Bettystown, I think we're going to call him the Bettystown man. A lovely fella, quiet fella. Evan, I was interviewing him there recently enough for ourselves, and he's just a lovely, lovely lad, and clearly highly thought of at Brighton. I was kind of worried for him. When Graham Potter left the club, you're thinking, right, De Zerbi's coming in. It's never easy for a young lad when a new manager has to get to know you all over again. It's a bit of trouble, but clearly Roberto De Zerbi thinks the same of him as Graham Potter did. He apparently stays after training as well with Danny Welbeck and a couple of the leading Brighton strikers to do the extra shooting practice and stuff, and picking up little tidbits of information from them. I don't want to put pressure on Evan Ferguson.
Come on, heap the pressure on. This is football. That's the whole point. Okay. He's going to be the new Robbie Keane. What are we talking about?
He's going to overtake Robbie's record, lads. Yeah. He's going to do it.
Well, he's got to have it in his sights. Come on.
Of course.
Good thing about this, it was a consolation goal, so it'll be quickly forgotten about. But because Aaron Connolly had the brace to beat Spurs, and then we wouldn't stop talking about him for about 2 months afterwards, and we know what happened then. So maybe this will be a more subtle emergence of a great player. Yeah, but Roberto De Zerbi had kind words to say about Ferguson afterwards as well. And he categorised him among a number of young players at Brighton, so he didn't highlight him per se individually, but he said he's one of a number of very good young players we have, which I think is perfect for his development. And at 18 years and 72 days, he becomes Ireland's youngest Premier League goal scorer, beating Michael Obafemi by 100 days.
Class.
And he becomes Brighton's youngest Premier League goal scorer, beating Aaron Connolly.
Aaron Connolly is definitely something that you hope that Evan Ferguson's camp are saying, look, this can happen, or Robbie Keane can happen. You can definitely dedicate yourself to your craft and make sure that you are cutthroat and ruthless in the pursuit of being the number one striker at this club, or you could end up playing in Serie B or not even playing in Serie B at the moment.
But as Kathleen pointed out pre-show, kind of we could be seeing more of him now on a verge of a move to Hull City from Vicenza. It's not too late for Connolly, by the way, just to say. He just needs to change his attitude, but he's a fine player, naturally talented.
Hull's a good move for him.
Well,
we'll see. Yeah, but
it's
up to him, isn't it?
David Myler speaks highly of the club and the people and all the rest of the
culture.
I
don't think
he needs good people around him. It's got to that stage of his career where he needs good people around him, and it could very easily be finished for him. That's the truth about where Connolly is at the moment in his career. He's not going to get many more chances. He had a chance. He's had several chances at this stage, and that's really impressive aggression that he had and ball skills that he had will only carry you so far. After that, you've got to make sure that you're completely dedicated to it, and whatever it was that was influencing him in his life not to dedicate himself properly to making it, if that's not cut out, then he's going to end up not playing football in 18 months.
He mentioned in the first leg of the 21s against Israel afterwards, he played very well in that game in Dublin, and he said that I've got my love of the game back. And I suppose that was a worrying thing to hear from someone so young, that he so quickly fell out of love with the game.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah, but look, I suppose it was a factor of on and off field issues, but look, hopefully there's more than enough time for him to resurrect his career.
De Zerbi and Chelsea, and Chelsea didn't make it here. What?
De Zerbi and Chelsea?
Abdication of Potter. Potter and Chelsea should have been in the red, right? That's what I'm saying.
Well, they drew.
Could have lumped them in as well, maybe.
They
But
drew. Well, I mean, as you know, there's limited spaces.
There's limited spaces.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
yeah, final green space this morning. I think deservedly so, because we don't really give them enough attention or perhaps praise, regardless of the fact that they're top of the Premier League table, is Arsenal. Definitely the top of the green on this morning's performance rankings on OTB AM. Lads, I don't know what you thought, but the performance was very good against Brighton. Played well. They conceded a couple of goals, which wasn't great. But I think Arteta is the type of manager who likes having something to work on and something to give the players a bit of a G up as well. The match tonight's going to be interesting. Newcastle. Arsenal's home record, regardless, is very good, but their home record against Newcastle at home is very, very good. Martin Odegaard was outstanding against Brighton.
That pass. My God, for Martinelli.
Oh, one of the best assists you'll see all season, if not the best.
Because the pass into him put him under a little bit of pressure. Thomas Partey put him into a central mid position, and there's just the wherewithal to see it and then to execute it.
Yeah. He's unbelievable. Emile Smith-Rowe to come back tonight. Jesus is still out, but maybe back next month.
It would be great for the Premier League if Arsenal won the title.
I can't believe they're in this position. They're 7 points clear. 7.
You know,
and they could be 10 tonight, for temporarily at least.
They do have tough games coming up.
Very tough. Man City double bill.
Yeah, I mean, and then the Man
I
City
think they'll
double
win
bill.
tonight, all right.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. David's a superb record against Newcastle, and Newcastle didn't score against Leeds. Weren't too great.
Newcastle's record, though, it doesn't really matter anymore. That's like saying, they had a great record against Man City, and then the money came.
Yeah, maybe. Well, the money came, but they haven't signed superstar players. As someone said recently on Twitter, it was like, the scary thing about Newcastle is they're in their Adebayor and Bellamy phase from Man City. They're only in their very early phase of signing players, so give it a couple of windows and they'll be superb on paper. At the moment, they're just good on paper.
I think they've skipped the Adebayor and Bellamy phase. They're not buying any dilettantes, and they're not buying any...
I think that Almiron has become a
just
sensation.
being smart.
Guimaraes is a very good player. They just have very good players, and they've a very good team.
But wasn't that Sven? Wasn't Sven in charge for that?
For Man City, no, that was before Takshin Shinawatra. So Sven's last game was Shinatra's last game as owning the club. They got hammered like 8-0 away to Middlesbrough.
It was
Mark Hughes.
So Hughes and
Sparky came in.
Did
Vincent
Sven
Kompany
replace?
No, Hughes replaced Sven in 2008.
Right, so
Sven had one season in charge, 07-08. They beat Man United in the Manchester Derby in September.
Sven.
And then he started brilliantly and then completely tapered off. And then they signed Vincent Kompany in a free transfer. And it looked like it was a standard Man City team. And then was it the last day of the transfer window in summer 2008? The lads came in and history was made.
The rest, as they say.
Yeah.
You watched that documentary, did you?
Which?
The Sky Man City documentary.
No, I just remembered it.
All right, wow.
We're getting into the hype of Arsenal. 10 points to lead tonight if they win. And obviously City play Chelsea on Thursday, but I mean, we'll know by the end of this month when they get through these games. Tottenham away, United at home as well. Then
we'll obviously start talking about the transfer windows because they've been linked with Mudryk. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Oh yes.
Shakhtar.
Yeah.
Quality player.
Yeah.
They're going to have to spend the 85.
He's very good.
They're going to have to spend the 85 million apparently. That's what Shakhtar want. They've offered 55. So maybe that happens now, and maybe they win the league, and maybe they're in the Jude Bellingham stakes out of nowhere.
Possibly.
You know,
they've lost one. They've lost 1 in 15.
It's not bad.
They're going to do a Leicester 2015-16 start really well, and then eventually see it out.
Right.
By the way, so we had our crystal ball, remember, before the year, and one thing Nathan said, and it stood out to me ever since, was one thing I can tell you for sure is Jude Bellingham will not be playing for Arsenal. So if it happens, we may pull that clip right out.
There you go. That was your first Gillette Labs performance rankings of 2023, folks.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
Right, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Start the new year off with a delicious Braeburn oat milk coffee. January never tasted as good. It's available at Apple Green locations nationwide. After the break, Alan Quinlan is going to join us. First, though, here is Tim Vickery talking to Mick McCarthy, paying tribute to Pele.
How interested, Tim, was Pele in those kind of conversations? How interested? I thought, like, he was one of those people that I think always came across as very humble in conversation, but not necessarily as a sportsman. Was he interested in the Pantheon conversations and his place in it?
Oh,
obsessed.
Oh, was he interested? Yes, yeah. I would go much further. Now, here we're beginning, and you've brought up, I think, a wonderful point. How often people talk of his humility. And again, I don't wish to criticise him on this in any way.
Yeah.
But he was a genius at public relations as well.
Yeah.
Because the humility doesn't apply to his own conception of himself as a footballer. And why should it? You don't get as good at anything, let alone something as competitive as football, without really having something about you, without really having an edge to you. And Pele, he was a ferocious guardian of his own legacy, and he hated anyone being placed close to him, and he had all kinds of swipes at Maradona for off the field activities or for being limited to the left foot. Messi, he said, when you've scored as many goals as I have, we can talk. Oh yes, I mean he's there's nothing modest about this, and part of that humility that he projects is a man utterly secure of his place in the pantheon, although always in the back of his mind worried.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Red 78.
It's going to be a bit of a lottery from the scrum point of view. They are incredibly strong.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Look, the stats sometimes can be skewed. You can have lower possession than the opposition and still win the game.
I can't believe you've been positive for 3 weeks in a row. It must have been something that's so out of your mindset.
Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Okay, it's 11 minutes past 8 this morning. We're turning our attention to rugby. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, Ger. Thanks. And yourself?
We'll get on to Ulster and Dan McFarland in a moment, but I do want to start with Johnny Sexton's health, which, let's face it, is the barometer of Irish rugby's well-being at the moment. The World Cup year is officially here. We've been banging on about it for 3.5 years. We're entitled to talk about it now non-stop every day between now and September when it actually happens. And lo and behold, the first thing that happens is Johnny Sexton's out for a significant period of time.
Yeah, it didn't look great, did it? Unfortunately, he took a heavy knock to the face, the side of the jaw, and we don't have the prognosis yet or the results of a scan, but it didn't look like something that you can just shake off and be back in playing next week or playing for Leinster in Europe the week after. So it's one that's it's disappointing, I think, and he hasn't had a lot of rugby play this year, and he's been minded a little bit, but he'd be a significant loss. But for the Six Nations, it's better if something like this happens now rather than at the World Cup, because he would be a significant loss given the way he's been playing.
I saw some debate online about his body position at the tackle and whether or not he was lucky not to have been red carded. Do you have a view on that, or was that just a bit of after timing?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the first one of the thoughts that came into my head when you tackle that high and you make contact. Albeit it was his jaw with Jared Butler's head. He could have been carded for it, but he does tackle high, doesn't he? He's done that for a long, long time, and he usually wraps the ball, and he's taken a lot of kind of heavy knocks over the years, and they've been kind of highlighted and spoken about. But it's one that could have been looked at, but I think he's absorbing the tackle a lot more than that forward motion at the end when there's a lot of debate around the tackler's technique around the height they're tackling at, and the onus is on the tackler. But it's one that could have been maybe looked at, but I think he's absorbing the tackle a lot more than any sort of movement going forward.
Regular listeners to this show will know that I had been saying that I thought that him and maybe Sean O'Brien and a few others should have been given 6 months off in advance of the last World Cup. This might now be an enforced period of rest for him. Do we just need to stop and hit the reset button and go, all we want is Sexton to be playing well by the time the World Cup comes, however that needs to happen? I guess this is twofold here, right? Is there a world in which Johnny Sexton last night got injured in that tackle because he wasn't quite at full match sharpness, having not played much recently, and so therefore he probably needs to play a good bit more than we actually think in advance of the World Cup, but that might be okay, and maybe he plays every minute of all the warm-ups and everybody's like, why are they doing this? Because he needs to get to that match sharpness? Or do you literally wrap him up in cotton wool and the next time we see him in a meaningful match is the start of the World Cup?
No, for me, it's too risky doing that. You can't wrap a guy in cotton wool. I think he was always going to, and he's managed pretty well at his age anyway, and as are most of the internationals here around their game minutes and stuff like that. His would be probably monitored a little bit more, and certainly we do want him at a World Cup. But I don't think you can wrap someone in cotton wool and give them a complete break from the game and bring them back for World Cup warm-ups in August and hope that it's too risky to do something like that. I think it could backfire on you. But if he's not available, if he's fractured his jaw and there is a fracture there maybe, which it hasn't been clarified yet, but it certainly looked like there was a serious mark on the side of his face, that he had a dent on the side of his jaw, which didn't look good. That could be down to it could have swelled up really quickly. But if he was to miss the Six Nations, well, it's more game time for Joey Carberry, Jack Crowley, Ross Byrne, and they've got to cope, and they coped against Australia, albeit it wasn't at the same level and it wasn't the best performance against Australia in November. But it's a little bit of luck that we need come November to have such a pivotal player available to Ireland. But I wouldn't say take him out of the game and wrap him in cotton wool. He needs to play rugby as well.
Yeah. The one last point about this is that the team is a completely different team. The Leinster team and the Ireland team are completely different teams when Sexton plays. All the advanced analytics show just what kind of difference he makes to the side. And yet, we can't put all our eggs in the Sexton basket. We've seen that he's barely played since the All Blacks series, which was obviously sensational. But at this stage of his career, he's going to pick up injuries. So those other players you're talking about, this is it now for them. Like, this is their moment to stick a hand up and go, I can be the player who starts at number 10 when Sexton's not around. And if Sexton is around, I'm the one breathing down his neck. Is there anybody who's ready to do that at the moment?
Well, I think obviously there's a big debate about this and the level that Johnny Sexton brings. I think the composure, the determination, the control, and the kind of energy that he brings to that Irish jersey when he's there and he kind of lifts players around him, that's pretty significant. It's hard to replicate that with the other players. Obviously, Jack Crowley got the nod in November against Australia. It was a big step up for him. There's a lot of excitement about him, and we're seeing the raw talent that he has. And I know we'll talk about it in a minute. The win in Belfast for Munster. There's still a couple of mistakes in him. There's still a little bit of jitterness. He's a wonderful footballer, and he has that little bit of spark that you want. Joey Carberry, I think he has that ability to step up there, and he's done it on a couple of occasions as well. It was very frustrating in the sense that, you know, Carberry got that head knock against Fiji and wasn't around to maybe start. But obviously, it's hard to replicate a Johnny Sexton. You know, there'll probably never be another Johnny Sexton at that level. The leadership, maybe some of the younger players, maybe Crowley will in a few years. Harry Byrne is back playing as well. So I'm not sure. Is there anyone at the same? There's no one at the same level, but I think it could be a great opportunity for someone like Crowley or Carberry to excel himself and kind of get a run. I think he's only had five starts or 6 starts for Ireland at out half, Joey Carberry. So, coming into this year, it's not ideal, and it could come back to cause Ireland problems. But it is what it is, and they've got to get on. And the Six Nations is an opportunity for somebody else if Johnny Sexton isn't available.
I can see it in your eyes, Quinny. You're mad to talk about Belfast. You're mad to talk about it. We might as well focus on the negatives for Ulster first before we get into the positives with Munster. But we mentioned the Dan McFarlane quotes earlier on in the show. Like, they really stand out because he's like, we were terrible. When they held onto the ball, they looked magnificent. We looked careless at times, like we didn't care how precious the ball was. Fairly strong comments from McFarlane after that match.
Yeah, very strong comments. As long as you don't want to talk about Brentford last night, Shane, that's all right. But Belfast on Sunday was good. I think it probably shows that they are on the right track, in the sense that, you know, like the South Africa results, like the Edinburgh result a couple of weeks ago at the start of November. I thought they were kind of pivotal moments for this team to go to Edinburgh. produced a performance. They did get a bonus point win. They probably should have won the game against Leinster. Well, certainly could have won the game against Leinster. They're in dire need of points, and you think going to Belfast, this is, you know, predictably it could be another win for Ulster. Even when I played back in, it's a good while ago now, it was always a difficult game, this game after Christmas, because you're going to be down some of the internationals, and it's a tough place to go and win. So no matter what position Munster were in and what squad they have, it was always a tough place to go. But I think we've seen glimpses, and we've spoken about it on the podcast and with you guys as well in the last few weeks, that there is glimpses that this team are starting to gel together a little bit. They're showing a bit of fight, determination, which is needed. Defensively, they're getting that stuff right. Bar Leinster, I think they're the second best defensive side in the URC, and that was even before this game on Sunday. So, you know, they're getting their fundamentals pretty good. I think obviously you can go into the set piece, and they lost lineouts early in the game, and you think the first half opportunities gone when Ulster were down to 14 men. You know, they weren't able to score. But I thought the reaction, and there seems to be a little bit of a spring in their step, and they're far from the finished article. I think they look at this game and certainly realise that they made some mistakes and opportunities, and they need to be better in certain things. But, you know, Dan McFarlane, in fairness to him, said that he didn't want to take away from the Munster performance. But when you go away from home and you have 65% possession and so up in 60% or over 60% territory as well, that would indicate that you're trying to play and that you have a lot of the ball. And I know the first half they weren't clinical enough with it, and Ulster had entries into the 22 that Dan McFarlane is talking about. But Munster look a lot more comfortable now in working together defensively, and, you know, some of the penalties they gave away in the first half were silly, but it was a really good performance for them. The fight to come back against, on paper, a stronger side, a more settled side, in a sense that, you know, Munster are still missing a lot of players, and they were down their internationals, but it was a brilliant win for them.
That's the point, I think, Quinny, isn't it? The fact that Ulster had some internationals back, Munster still without, you know, Tadhg and Peter O'Mahony, for example. Like, when is it panic stations for Ulster and Dan McFarland?
Yeah, well, look, Munster still down a number of players who can bolster the bench and give them a little bit of depth, particularly around the second row position. You know, Kieran McDonald has come in a short-term contract. He was really good the other night. For Ulster, look, it's been a dreadful couple of weeks, and I think they going to Galway last week on the 23rd of December. You think for 50-60 minutes it's good, and they've played well, and they've dominated, they've won the physical battle, and in the end they're hanging on for dear life. So, you know, psychologically we talk about them a lot. Dan McFarlane said that, you know, himself, that they were soft in a sense that, and he didn't specify physically or mentally, he wasn't really, but just as a team, they were broken down easily, and in Galway, and they could have, you know, ruined a perfect night from, you know, they got the win in the end, 22-20, but the results against Sale, first half against La Rochelle, so he's worried, he's concerned, and he should be, but on paper they're a very, very dangerous side, but they're lacking something. Henderson has come back in the last few weeks, and, you know, they would have been really, really down the dumps after losing that game the other night at home.
So, is it a crisis? Because it has the bang of a crisis off it at the moment.
Yeah, well, you'd feel like it is a crisis when you lose a game like this at home. You could put down the last few weeks to the travel, to a little bit of luck, bounce of the ball, maybe not. You know, everyone has little dips in the season, Ger, but, you know, this one will hurt a lot. Given it's at home, it's a packed house. It's the first game of the new season. Munster down the internationals, and you think you've got to win this game. Go back to June in the quarterfinals, and Leinster blew Munster away with a similar team, and Munster had a stronger side. So you know, going up, I think Munster fans would be more hopeful going to Belfast, but they couldn't shake him off. I think obviously when Balakun scores a try, if he gets a conversion, it's 16-5. It's has a different feel. Munster getting the penalty, making it 14-8. Any team chasing a lead, if you bring it back to within that try and conversion score line, you're going to make it nervy, and they just lack a little bit of control and composure, Ulster, at vital times, and they allow teams back into it. But I just thought Munster were really brave in what they did, and they made a lot of line breaks. They kept going. They caused Ulster a lot of problems at the breakdown. So, from Dan McFarlane's point of view, I know he looked back in this and it was really poor in a lot of stuff they did. But on the other side, I think it showed that Munster are moving forward a little bit. The reality still is they're going to come up short, and they're still going to struggle possibly to make the playoffs, but they've given themselves a real shot here. This was a win that wouldn't have been expected.
Two last points on this. Healy obviously performing the way he did. The links to Scotland won't go away. What do you think is going to happen here?
I'm not sure, because I think Ben Healy is a very talented player. He has ability. I think the only downside at the moment that I would see in his game is just physically, defensively, and probably when he's in collisions and in contact. For a big man, he needs to be a little bit more physical. He's a very talented guy, and he's shown that he's so laid back, doesn't panic, which is a brilliant attribute in a fly half, because they're usually under a lot of pressure. They have a lot of decisions to make, so he's very calm. So he has something other fly halves maybe don't have, that control, and I thought he was brilliant. So it's often the case when guys' backs are to the wall that they come out fighting, and they bring that little bit of fight and energy. He was very good in Cork against South Africa as well. So what's going to happen? I don't know. I think he'll certainly be tempted. This is the second time Scotland have come looking for him. His contract is up at the end of the season. He's got to assess where he's at. Jack Crowley has kind of leapfrogged him a little bit. Joey Carberry's there. Does he want to sit and be third choice? Does he believe that he can be first choice? Because they're not kids anymore now. These guys have played a good bit of rugby in the last 2 seasons. So it's a big decision. Munster would love to keep him, I'm sure, and he would be a very important player going forward. But I think the other night will certainly help the perception of Ben Healy, and it certainly puts him back on the radar again for people going, wow, this guy can do something here. And he was very, very good when he came on, and he's an undoubted talent.
It's hard to know what to think when there's a possibility we could have Cooney at 9 and Healy at 10 for Scotland.
Yeah.
Against us in the World Cup, And if Healy wants to go and play for Scotland, part of you thinks fair enough. If that's what you think is the right thing for you, then off you go, and that would be a sign that you don't fancy your chances of knocking over your opposition. And then part of you thinks Ireland don't really have a glut of brilliant young out halves, so let's make sure we keep him in the system and get the benefit of the fact that maybe in 3-4 years' time he is the best of that crop, because we don't know how they're all going to evolve and develop.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you can get 5, 6, 7 of these fly halves behind Johnny Sexton, and you keep shaking and rocking and seeing more and more of these guys, the chances are 1 or 2 of them are going to learn from Sexton, go on that path of developing their own game, and that character-wise, that resilience. It's hard to coach that stuff, but talent-wise, yeah, I think David Nuciforo wouldn't want to lose him. I don't think Munster would want to lose him, but that carrot is kind of dangling there, international rugby and where he sees himself. So if you're Ben Healy, you're thinking, right, okay, what do I have to do now to get playing for Ireland? Well, I have to get a number 1 slot in Munster and start playing regularly for Munster in the big games, and then get called up to the Irish squad. So there's a good few steps to go there, in a sense where if Scotland come and bring him to Scotland, Glasgow and Edinburgh, you sense that they'll nearly drop him straight into a Scottish squad and fast track him. So It's a tough one for him, and I'm not privy to what the conversations are with his agent and contract negotiations and all that kind of stuff, but it was pretty telling that he signed a 1-year contract last year and it wasn't longer, so he's certainly going to be tempted by it. I think the last couple of weeks would have not been great for him when he sees his lack of game time throughout December. So let's see what happens. I think the other night will certainly give him a boost and he'll have a pep in his step going into Munster training this week.
Last one then on the Ulster game. When McFarlane comes out and criticises the players again, Stephen Ferris afterwards was talking about how there's only so many times you can do that before, So that's, I guess, when I'm asking about a crisis, it's like, well, you've done that publicly. There's been the various issues that they've had. Robert Coyle in the Texters is making the point, the logistics in getting to Sale, Frostgate, no leadership on and off the field, hurting financially, support waning, more to Ulster's issues than just playing poorly. It does seem like, what's happening on the field is a reflection of what's going on on a more wider basis at the club at the moment. There's a non-zero chance that McFarlane isn't the coach next season. You got to presume the RFU want McFarlane to stay and that they'll be buttressing him and supporting him, because the last thing they want is another change of coach there who comes in and says, I've got a 3-year plan and we're all working towards the future.
Yeah, I think, look, it's I agree with Fez. I think if you and I'm sure behind the scenes he probably ripped him a new one, given the, when you go out and you're kind of trying to stay controlled after a game like that. But he was honest, and he has been honest, and he's but it's getting to that point that if, I think they will make the playoffs, they'll be knocking on the door in the URC. They were unlucky last year. They could have beaten the eventual winners in the semi-final. Stormers very unlucky in the end. But we talk about that a lot, don't we, Ger? Small margins and a little bit of bad luck and what ifs for Ulster. They've got to deliver. I think they're in a tough place in Europe as well, but they can still qualify. But the pressure is going to come on him a little bit, and internally, if you hear the coach kind of lambasting you, I'm sure he's been pretty tough on them this week, and they've got to pick themselves up their way in Benetton this week. So they've got to go there and win and possibly get 5 points and get back on track and turn this around. They are in a bit of a crisis at the moment. There's no doubt about that. One
suggestion here from Robert Coyle, who I think is our resident Ulster fan in the comments, is the RFU should send Ben Healy to Ulster. Billy Burns has to go. Like the Billy Burns experiment, him playing for Ireland, that those days are over, so I'm not really sure what the point of persisting with him as the 10 at Ulster is. Is there a world in which Ben Healy ends up... Possibly, yeah. Possibly. I think Jake Flannery obviously just went up there and he's not got a lot of game time, but it would be the best... it wouldn't be a bad scenario for Ireland to keep him here. And if he was playing with one of the other provinces, yeah. That would be great to keep him for with a view to playing for Ireland. But the Billy Burns thing is rumbling on. A lot of Ulster people talk about that, and it's an area where they're lacking that bit of control and composure, because when you think of McCluskey, Hume, Balakoon, Ethan McElroy, Michael Lowry, they're finishers. They've got pace, they've got quality, and at times they it's not really their attack that's the problem. It's their control in games and where they play, and that composure that's needed. And he's not that type of player, Billy Burns, is he? He's a kind of off the cuff, and he's a bit of spark to him, and he's attacking. He runs a lot. So maybe they do need a little bit more of a pragmatic approach. I think their maul has been really good, and we've criticised their forwards a lot over the years, but they were porous and they were a bit soft the other night against Munster.
Just strikes me, Quinlan, when we're talking about Munster and it being all sunshine and roses, because they, of course, got the right side of the result at the weekend. Like, attacking wise, after those interpros against Ulster and Leinster, they had the ball so often in the opposition 22 and can only, I guess, get over the try line a certain amount of times. Like Mike Prendergast surely will have a lot of stuff to work on, even regardless of all the positives we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's they had opportunities in the first half, didn't take them. I think what was most pleasing for this team was at the end. They didn't panic after the Jack Crowley break. We see that a lot with Munster. You know, they make some bit of a break. There's no one on the shoulder. They go 40, 50 yards up the field, and then the ball is turned over. They knock it on, and it's the pressure has gone off the opposition. I think that bit of composure that they showed, and for Conor Murray to pass it to Ben Healy that time, we've seen Munster many times before, and under the old regime, they would have kept picking and going. To actually give the pass there, and you know, Shane Daly was outside him. He could have passed it Ben Healy. But that's where the space was, and for them to score there at that critical time. But of course they'll look at that and they'll try and execute better. And they're far from the finished article, Shane. So no way am I suggesting that Munster are in a great position now. But I think they're showing positive signs, and they're enthusing, you know, the Munster fans a little bit from where the results at the start of the season.
One last thing, Jordan Larmour's back. Is this something that might force the Ireland selectors' hands a bit?
Yeah, I think it was brilliant. He's had a dreadful time with injuries, a lack of form at times as well, coming back, picking up another injury. He's a brilliant player, and he has a little bit of niggle to him now. Even in that Munster match down in Thomond Park, he's trying to get in counter-rucking. At one stage, he's slamming into Munster forwards in a maul. But he has that brilliance. I think it was that X factor that you just can't coach in people. He has that. So trying to utilise that, getting it back, is another big boost. Ryan Baird was someone, outstanding performance from him as well. And they just flexed their muscles, didn't they, after about 55, 60 minutes, Leinster, and showed their quality. But when you have someone like Larmour making those line breaks, stepping people, it's just so many talented players they have. But I think it's brilliant to see Jordan Larmour back in action as well.
Quinny, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
It's Alan Quinlan giving us his thoughts there. If you've got views, we'd love to hear them. You can get us 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Still remember that. And you can get us on YouTube, youtube.com/off the ball. You can subscribe there and you can leave a comment. Or you can get us at Off the Ball AM on Twitter as well. A reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Shifty Lad in the comments says, good morning, lads. Have a great new year. All the best to everyone connected with the show, including texters that enhances the show. You know who you all are. He's talking about himself. That's like self-praise and no praise, Shifty.
Pat on the back. I love it. I love it. You got to do it sometimes, you know.
Mark C says, as a Leinster fan who goes to all the games, the only complaint about music in the ground is the absolute nonsense of music as the Leinster players take the field. Now that needs to stop. Somebody's saying it's Tiesto. I don't know. I mean,
let's get down to business. That was the World Cup one as well, wasn't it? Before every single World Cup match that was played.
Give it to do me it.
Let's get down to business.
Oh, that one. Okay, are they doing that one?
Was that alright? I don't know the rest of the words. Sorry.
I thought they was it not?
That's good for the Leinstertainment.
Was there not like what? I'm trying to think of the bit that they always used to use.
The Leinster ones.
Yeah. Anyway, somebody in the comments
will let us know.
I literally no one has texted us this morning going, I can't believe you're not talking about the Wolf Tones thing, because no one cares.
No.
No one cares.
Once the Sky interview with Chloe Mustaki happened, everyone was like, oh, hold on.
Yeah, we don't care about this anymore.
That's finished. Yeah. So the Leinster one.
What does it mean, Shane? What does it all mean? Explain to us now what it means.
Leinster apologised very, very, very strongly. I would almost think too strongly. I know they have to because they've seen the example of what's come before with the women's team, but it was almost like, Jesus, let's get this apology out of the way quickly. I understand why they did it. Of course, they want to cover their ass, but I mean, it's all a bit much, wasn't it?
Well, I don't care either way.
Yeah.
No. I don't care.
I think that's most people's opinion at the moment.
The rest of the world is a complicated, difficult thing, and I don't really care about this.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the women singing the song in the dressing room afterwards. I didn't care about it afterward. I am interested in trying to understand what it means about like the wider national question, but I'm not sure it means anything.
No, I think the conversation needs to disappear. Like, even Nigel Carr, I saw him being interviewed. The Belfast Telegraph did an interview with him off the back of this Leinster thing. I don't know if they were speaking to him anyway, but Nigel, of course, former Ulster player, career ended by a IRA bomb, and he was like, look, it was unfortunate that it happened at the Leinster match, but like, kind of need to move on. And that's Nigel Carr saying this. So I think that the story needs to end. You know.
Yeah.
It's just a song played in a PA system.
Yeah. I mean, Don Lennon talks about they would sing the sash on the bus on the way to matches sometimes, like as I mean, and I'm sure loads of people are massively offended by that.
Didn't the Argentinians sing some anti-English Falklands-related songs?
Malvinas, yeah.
I mean, just happens. Part of country's culture and songs and tradition. And
does it matter?
That's the question. This is the
I don't know
age-old philosophical question.
Now the comments. If you want to get involved in that, right? It is 8:40. Colin Mullaney, how are you? Good morning,
lads. Happy New Year. How's it going?
Sim yourself.
Many happy returns.
How's this show going so far? Early start. It's different on the 3rd of
Good
January.
solid 6.5 out of 10, I'd say.
Oh, that's good.
That's not bad for a 3rd of January show.
Is that a C?
I'll take
that. An old school C.
Take that all day.
Oh, I'll take a pass today. Yeah, for sure. I slept less than you last night.
That's a B.
That's a B. Yeah, it's a B. Yeah. Ah, yeah. We're being harsh. You're being harsh on ourselves. It's only because Colin said you were the same age as Daniel Craig, isn't it?
Be in college. What?
It's only because Colin said you were the same age as Daniel Craig. So if you missed this, Colin.
No, we don't need to. We don't need to.
Daniel Craig's 54.
Is he 54?
Colin suggested that himself and Jerry.
He's Colin Buig's ideal man, though. You should know that. That was the most important part of the whole conversation.
Good to know.
Let's move on there, Shane.
I'm very excited, lads, because and I'm actually considering wearing my retro Monaghan jersey on air tomorrow because the Dr. McKenna Cup is back.
Oh yeah,
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Monaghan played down in Castleblaney tomorrow evening. I know we'll get
streaming that for $9.99.
I was tempted to drive from Dublin to Castleblaney and back tomorrow evening. I don't think I'll do it, but
I'm not a real fan. There'll be 20,000 at it, will there?
Maybe 20. No. It'll be a decent crowd because Castleblaney is a nice little provincial ground. I'd love to go up to it.
Yeah, there's still a novelty attached to midweek GA games. Like Waterford play Tip in the Munster Hurling League tonight, so it's two new managers, Davy Fitz and Liam Cathal, so I'm sure there'll be a decent crowd at that.
For sure.
I paid a tenner yesterday to watch Mayo versus Sligo challenge match, Kevin McStay's first match.
11-point win for Mayo.
A tenner?
Yeah.
Wow.
Enjoyed the game, apart from the result, but Mayo looked impressive, I have to say. They'd only, I think, 5 of their team from the championship last year, so they're trying out a lot of new faces. But yeah, it's a lovely time of year for teams coming back. And then you have the thing that, I wonder, do these pre-season competitions take on a little bit more clout now because the league is coming up so quickly at the end of the month? So
colleges are gone from McKenna Cup anyway. Like, I think that was a smart
Of course,
move.
Sigerson is going to come back, and the Fitzgibbon now is going to come back into the reckoning. But it's a really quick turnaround for so many players, especially those that are still involved in club action or were involved up until early December, and some of the clubs are still involved. So I think Kerry are only back from their team holiday or something like that there to play in Munster fairly shortly this week as well. So
we all know the big story that has been established is that the Dubs are lining up Kildare from a month away to try and beat the shit out of them in Croke Park. That's your official story.
Telling you, word on the grapevine, lads.
What, the spread should be 20 points?
Well, 20.
If what you're hearing is true.
Yeah, at least. No, but I said it just to G up the Kildare lads and get them.
Oh, you think you're like there's some kind of sleeper cell?
They have a new manager to press as well. Do you know there's a lot of interest in Kildare football at the moment. I think Kildare could push the Dubs.
If we keep the ball kicked out to them, we'll be happy.
Yeah, I'm actually going to watch Division 2 with a lot of eagerness with Derry, Kildare and Dublin down there. So.
News this morning coming through that Sia Khaleesi has confirmed that he is joining Racing after the World Cup. This is coming from L'Equipe this morning. He says he's going to join Racing after the 2023 World Cup, and says that it's because he met Jackie Lorenzetti. It was a lesson in humility. He said to me right away when we saw each other, I want you to be able to give everything on the pitch. That's all he expects of me, but it can also support my philanthropy, and that means everything to me. So he's going to be hooking up with Stuart Lancaster. So
big move, yeah.
I mean, I love Lancaster, but I hope he doesn't make Racing really good really quickly.
That would be. He's the Midas touch.
It's unfortunately that might happen, and then there'd be another team for Leinster to worry about as well as all those other South African side.
And we're still waiting for Johnny Sexton's cheekbone injury. I think there were scans to take place yesterday and today possibly as well, but I mean, just over a month of the Six Nations, we're back to that conversation again at number 10.
I think he's getting the injury out of the way early.
I mean, that's certainly,
touch wood,
that would be great if that was to happen. But there is also the case to be made that he's got to play. He's got to keep playing. But whatever I know the way that the blame game happens is like it was all apparently Jack Carty's fault and Enda McNulty's fault the last time at the World Cup. Nothing to do with the rest of the players and Joe Schmidt and David Nucifora. Certainly that's how the post-event happens. Oh, we weren't very good psychologically, and sure, Jack Carty, didn't he have a few bad kicks? That's not what happened. So you would hope that this time, whatever preparation they're doing in terms of strength and conditioning, because our fitness is supposed to be one of the things that like gives us a massive advantage, and I don't know, like, can we not peak in September, October, because we're not used to peaking in September, October?
If you're Andy Farrell, are you wrapping him in cotton wool for the 6 months before the World Cup, or are you playing him as much as you can?
I'm not playing him at all in the Six Nations if I'm Andy Farrell, but I'm definitely saying you're going to play every minute for Leinster at the end of the season to make sure that you're still the player we think you are, and then you're going to play at least 2 full games in the World Cup warm-ups to make sure that you're still the player you are, because at this point, at this stage of your career, the cliff happens overnight. There's going to be a day where you are still really good, and then the next day you won't be able to play rugby at the same level anymore, because that's how the ageing process seems to work for professional athletes, particularly in a contact sport.
So leave him out of Six Nations entirely.
Well, like, why not? This stage, this is a blessing in disguise, right?
Do Ireland win the Six Nations without Johnny Sexton?
I don't care about winning the Six Nations in the long run, right?
Why though?
I know the IRFU care about winning the Six Nations because they get more money for the prize money, and they're a money-hungry organisation. They've always said that we need this to be able to finance the game. And I understand the rationale behind that, but I actually think it's a short-term thinking when the long-term goal of progressing further in the World Cup will completely lift the mood of the rugby playing nation and will stop us having the inferiority complex that we have.
If we go out once more in the World Cup quarterfinals, do you not think it would be nice to look back and say, oh, we had a Grand Slam earlier this year?
No, it will be nothing. Nothing.
Zero. In terms of the history books, we look back and say that was a great Grand Slam year.
Do you not think that doing well in the Six Nations to carry on the momentum is important, aside from titles and
Ger loves
momentum?
Like That's a good point.
But they're months and months and months and months and months and months and months apart.
We're talking about the World Cup from
it is the same calendar year, yeah.
They're completely separate competitions. Everybody will have an off season. The number of injuries that you suffer, like.
Do you not think France are targeting the Six Nations massively before the World Cup? Do you not think England are going to target the Six Nations with Steve Borthwick in charge?
Yeah, I mean.
So why shouldn't we target it with full gusto and put Sexton in for every game?
Because we don't have a massive, deep playing pool the way England and France do, and I'm sure the winning culture is the most important thing. But we've just come off a year where we have a winning culture established.
Like, but if we lose that winning culture all of a sudden 6 months out from the World Cup, you're like, well, you'll forget how to win pretty quickly. If you go all of a sudden lose 2 or 3 Six Nations matches,
okay, a couple of different things, right? We've gone in with really good Six Nations behind us to the World Cup in France. That time they stayed in Bordeaux and it was all a shit show. We've gone in with the disaster the last time and said, oh, it's okay, it's fine. England have just exploded into us and beaten the crap out of us at home when we've got way ahead of ourselves. That was the last World Cup, so we've done everything. We've kind of had every type of preparation for a Rugby World Cup, and I don't think it matters. I think all that matters is having your best players playing well by the time the tournament starts in October. Really, September, October. That's what's important.
Is this a fear of peaking too early?
No, it's just that they're separate competitions. Like
it's the same
calendar year. Like we've seen Real Madrid have terrible leagues and win the Champions League. We've seen them be beaten by 10, 12 points by Barcelona in the league and win the Champions League. Like, they're separate competitions. They require a slightly different approach and skill set. There's loads of down weeks in the Rugby World Cup where you're playing teams who are vastly inferior to you, which only happens when you're playing Italy, and even Italy now aren't as bad as they were. So I don't know. And like, you've got to win 3 big games in the World Cup to get to a final. We can do that, but I'm not sure we can do that with Johnny Sexton playing every game in the Six Nations, coming back from a cheek injury. Like, would you force him to wear a mask and play a game in one of these? I don't think so. You can't do that.
There are just some countries who are good tournament nations. We are not one of them. I even think about the snooker. There's some players who are crap for 11 months of the year and they go to the Crucible for the 17-day slog and they're brilliant. The same with, it's the reverse for Ireland in the Rugby World Cup, always. We just need to become a tournament team. You mentioned the down weeks. You have to become a tournament team. Get used to those little games that mean nothing, the World Cup warm-up matches as well, the games against the likes of Georgia or Romania or whoever that you're expected to win. It's tournament management, and that's something we haven't done well at all. Now, obviously, strength and depth is a key part of that as well, but That's something that we need to improve on massively. I don't know if that's a psychological
So
thing.
you guys want to win the Grand Slam / win a Six Nations Championship, and you think that that's going to benefit us when the World Cup happens?
Can't hurt.
Well, I mean, except if like you go eye strings out and players get injured and...
Yeah, but as you said, it's 6 months out.
But
6 months to recover from an injury. I mean, it'd be a fairly serious injury to keep you out for 6 months.
Hamstring torn off the bone, an Achilles, a third or fourth concussion for somebody who is prone to concussions. Keep them out of the front line. I think let's have this extended squad. Let's have massive competition, so that when the World Cup rolls around, if Sexton is out, or if Jemison Gibson Park is out, or if either of our two front rows is out, then we're like, okay, we have some strength and depth, and we have players who have experience.
Those same injuries could happen in the World Cup warm-up matches.
Yeah, they could. Well,
you can't live life on your tippy toes sometimes.
But if they happen in the World Cup warm-ups and everybody's played every game of every minute of every game in the Six Nations, you've no strength and depth. That's the difference. I'm saying get the strength and depth in and have those players come back and then go, okay, so Jeremy Loughlin's played 5 games in the Six Nations. That's brilliant. He struggled in 3 of them, but in 2 of them he came through, and now he fully understands what it's supposed to be. I think he's called Lukeman, by the way, but we'll get to that another day. What else is going on?
A few different bits and pieces. Football again tonight. Big game for Arsenal. They can go 10 points clear at the top of the Premier League if they beat third place in Newcastle at the Emirates. That's the big one of the 4 games tonight. Leicester host Fulham, Brighton take on Everton, and Manchester United host Bournemouth at Old Trafford. Pele's funeral will take place this afternoon. There'll be a procession through the streets of Sao Paulo before the 3-time World Cup winner is laid to rest in a private family service. The final at the PDC World Darts Championship is on tonight. Michael van Gerwen bidding for his 4th title. He takes on Michael Smith after their respective semi-final wins last night. In the NFL, an American football player is in a critical condition in hospital after collapsing on the field last night. Damar Hamlin of Buffalo Bills received CPR during a game against Cincinnati Bengals. The 24-year-old fell to the ground after colliding with an opponent, and the game was subsequently suspended. So we're awaiting further updates there. And we mentioned Gaelic games that Davy Fitzgerald begins his 2nd stint as Waterford hurling manager tonight. The day should go up against former boss Liam Cathal as they take on Tipperary in the Munster Hurling League, and that game throws in at Friar Field at 7 o'clock.
All right, Carl, good stuff.
Thank you,
what are your New Year's resolutions, Carl?
I want to get back from injury to play some golf. I haven't played golf in 6 months.
You're playing off something low.
Are you out of a cast?
No, I've got to. Hopefully next week, fingers crossed.
Right.
So that's my number 1.
If you could tap yourself on the shoulder and go back and say something last year about the injury, would you be like, don't play with the broken arm? Is that a...
Nah, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't change it.
Really?
I would have changed the results, obviously, because we didn't do very well, but I wouldn't, I would have missed the whole season if I had looked at it at the time that I did, so.
And is there any chance you might miss this season? No? You're okay,
Hopefully, I'll know next week, but it's... no, I want to get back playing a bit of golf. That's my main goal.
You should be in one of those AIB ads, literally played with broken hand.
No, it's not that.
Giving up a promising golf career.
Also,
Hardy Sligo man.
Not too late for you to get one of those scholarships to the US, is it?
Yeah, no, I'm afraid I'm definitely the wrong side of 20. But this year, Rugby World Cup, Rory McIlroy to win the Masters.
Oh.
I'm hoping Sligo might get to the Connacht final and get into the top 16. I think Kerry could be in our group.
It's like Bebo all over again, isn't it?
Yeah. So lots to look forward to.
All right. We'll enjoy that.
Thanks, lads.
It's 8:53. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now, I'm delighted to talk to Harriet Pryor of the Anfield Wrap about the situation at Liverpool. Harriet, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you.
What's going on at the moment at Liverpool?
Yeah, it was a really bad night. I think the Leicester game kind of covered over the cracks because those 2 own goals, we managed to get the 3 points, and so it wasn't as much of a spotlight on everything that sort of went wrong that night. And then we played Brentford last night, and it was just bad. It was the first 10 minutes. I actually thought we started quite strong. I know that the message would have been try and come out the block strong and get a good start. And I actually thought we did that, and then after 10 minutes, the intensity just dropped off. The pressing game wasn't there. They were playing through the midfield so easily. There was just every area of the pitch you could point out as not combining, not clicking, not working well. And it meant that, by the time we went over half-time, we were 2-0 down and the damage had already been done.
I think the whole world has so much faith, rightly so, in Jurgen Klopp, that there was just this assumption that the break for the World Cup would give him the opportunity to work on whatever the issues were at a philosophical level. I'm sure so many of the players were going to be away that, you know, working with them was going to be tricky, but that whatever the technical issues were behind the style of play or behind what they're trying to do would have been rectified. But actually, what we saw last night was really a continuation of what we'd seen up to the World Cup.
Yeah, it was a continuation. And I think if you look at some of the pre-season games they played, they really tried to work on getting that intensity back, because you could literally hear them on the sidelines during those pre-season games going, now you push, now you press, now you go. And I've just not seen that continue through to the start of the season, because I feel like Liverpool's attack used to press straight away as soon as the defence had the ball, win the ball back high up the pitch. That was how they got goals. That was how they poached so many goals. It was keeping that intensity high the whole way through. Now I just see the attacking line standing off a little bit. The midfield sort of out of position, not knowing where to go, and then it gets through to defence so easily, and they're left in situations where the fullbacks are so high up the pitch, the centre backs are sort of scrambling back to try and get hold of the situation, and ultimately that ends in us conceding too many goals. So those basic things that I thought we'd come back and rectify after the World Cup break, the pressing, the running, the intensity, those things haven't changed post-World Cup. And then when you're playing any team that puts any pressure on you, like Brentford did last night, and they had a good game plan, so credit to Brentford, things are going to unravel pretty quickly.
Jurgen Klopp's comments post-defeat, Harriet, tend to be quite interesting at the best of times. Last night, even more so, talking about Brentford stretching the rules. I think he gave out about the third goal as well, and how that came about. What did you make of his reaction to the defeat last night?
Yeah, look, I think when people are frustrated and managers are frustrated, you saw it this week with Conte as well, they sort of reflect on it in a different light. I think once he's had time to go back and maybe rewatch the game, and I don't think he'll shy away from the fact that Liverpool just weren't good enough. I don't think he ever shies away from that fact, but I think there probably was a bit of frustration with the officiating, but probably can't see too much wrong, especially that third goal. I don't think Konate was fouled. I think he just went down a little bit too easily, but that was sort of reminiscent of a lot of the battles, the one-on-one battles that happened last night, individual players going down a little bit too easily and not winning their battles and not backing each other up. So I think at the time he's probably speaking with a lot of frustration. He's a passionate manager. We know that he's an emotional manager. He can't hide away from that. But yeah, I think once he's had a bit of time to reflect, and he already sort of has reflected on this, Liverpool just simply weren't good enough. And even if a few more results had gone our way, I still don't think we'd have come away from there with the 3 points.
That concession of goals and chances from set pieces, I mean, that's particularly concerning at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is particularly concerning because you look at us defending from corners and it looked like the defenders didn't know where they should be last night, and that's a really sort of concerning thing when they're usually such an organised team, and maybe they lacked that bit of leadership with Henderson out last night. I'm not so sure, but Virgil van Dijk is usually so good at leading that back line and telling all the players where they're meant to be, but there was times where they just looked like they were scrambling, and all Brentford really had to do was put an extra man in, and they had to put an extra man in between the centre-backs and between the full-backs, sort of overload the area, and then our defence didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether to scramble back and mark the man. They didn't know whether to stay in the space. So it was a really simple game plan from Brentford that Liverpool weren't able to deal with well enough whatsoever, and it made the defence from set pieces in particular look like a shambles.
They had a really strong team out last night, notwithstanding the injuries that they have. They still had, obviously, Van Dijk for the first half. Fabinho's incredibly experienced and was considered one of the best holding midfielders in the world 18 months ago. Thiago, who is supposed to be the glue that binds everything together, started the game. So there's not much to pin hopes on that this is going to turn around quickly. This is going to be a long, hard slog for them to get out of this.
Yeah, look, I think there's always sort of been in the last few months this need for a reinvention now. And I think a part of that does come from transfers and bringing in fresh faces, because it forces everyone to up their game. And we have just brought Cody Gakpo in, and obviously that will be hopefully a huge positive in terms of pushing on that forward line and making things gel a bit better there. But there's no doubt that the midfield area is in desperate need, excuse me, of some reinvention and reinvestment now. So it's not a quick fix. I think there's going to be a process now where they have to look at everything and have to think, okay, what areas actually need improving? But that midfield area is glaring out to me as it needs just one extra body in there, maybe to bring a bit more youth, but also just to bring a bit more control, because that's what was missing for me so much last night, but also throughout the season, any sense of control in the midfield area. But yeah, definitely a long process. I think Klopp's spoken a lot in the past about when you identify a problem, everyone thinks it's a really quick fix. But even if you manage to identify one problem, and I think in Liverpool's case, it's probably multiple problems they're trying to deal with at once, it's hard to know the exact solution and then the only way you can really practice that is in a game situation, and then it's difficult when confidence is low and when panic sort of sets in and individual mistakes set in as well.
You mentioned earlier, Ger, wanting to see the running stats and how they compare to last season, and that's a serious point, Harriet, because intensity is our identity, is the phrase that you often hear coming out of Liverpool as well, and that intensity just isn't there at the moment.
No, the intensity isn't there, absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier sort of that press was sort of key to how Liverpool set up and how they played, winning that ball back in really dangerous areas and making something out of nothing. So they didn't have to run as far back and have to track back as far. And that meant that the fullbacks, Trent Alexander-Robertson, usually it was Tsimikas last night, could stay really high up and they could be attacking the threats and they weren't exposed so much on the counter-attack. But when the ball's not being won back high up the pitch and the fullbacks are still staying so high and the holding midfield is still staying high, you're getting exposed far too easily. So that intensity is actually having a real knock-on effect straight from attack, and then it's directly impacting the defence because they just can't deal with all the counterattacks that are coming their way when it's only basically those two back there and no one else is sort of hanging back. And that defensive high line has worked so well for Liverpool for seasons and made them win all the major trophies there is to win. However, when there's no one sort of hanging back and they are struggling, it just doesn't help, and the risk versus reward sort of becomes too much of a balance for them to handle.
So obviously there's multiple factors here creating a bit of a knock-on. A lot of our commenters are talking about the midfield. Somebody says the midfield is either over 30s or early 20s. Nobody's in their prime. But Fabinho's only 29 and should be in his prime. Like he's reached a level of expertise and experience where you feel like he should be getting better still. You know, he's adding the level of high pressure games and massive number of minutes played. But his form has it seems anyway, his form is not as good as it should be. That's one aspect of it. Thiago's form is kind of not as good as it should be, it feels as well. That seems to be impacted by the point you're making about the forwards not being able to press the way they were. But what's stopping Oxlade-Chamberlain, Darwin Núñez and Mo Salah from doing what the forward line would have done when it would have been Firmino, Salah and Mane? Why is that different?
Yeah, so I think if first to your point about sort of the midfielders and individual performances, I actually don't think any sort of you can't really look at Thiago. I thought Thiago's been quite good in the last stage of this since we come back from the World Cup. I thought Fabinho was really good against Aston Villa and looked like he was getting back to sort of one of his best performances. So I don't know if you can necessarily point at individuals. It's just the system isn't really facilitating them so that they can get the best out of them at the moment. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact they don't have the cover in behind. So maybe that is Fabinho just dropping back a little bit further and providing that cover so that the others can push forward a bit more. But we're sort of lacking that one midfielder who can be that cover and then also push forward a bit more. It's sort of a difficult role that this holding midfielder will have to play, but that's kind of what we're missing at the moment. And then the attackers, I don't know if there's an element of it being a bit of naivety. You know, Salah, Mane and Firmino was such a solid front three. The combinations worked really well. They knew exactly when to go and when to hold back on the press. They knew instinctively where each other were going to be. And maybe that relationship and the nature of the front three now not being as settled, being a lot of change in that front three, maybe that's impacting them. And you know, Núñez is a new player as well. He won't know exactly when to press and when not to press at the moment. Salah is still trying, and I think can't really criticise Mo Salah too much when it comes to it. But yeah, just not enough running. And I thought last night they tried to set up a lot more narrow, which is what you maybe would have expected from Mane, Salah, Firmino in the past. They tried to set up quite narrow so that they'd force them to play out wide and they'd try and win the ball back in those areas. But then it left Liverpool far too exposed. So I don't think you can just put it down to them not pressing well. Obviously, that's the first element. But they're not going to press well if they don't feel like they've got the cover in behind. And that's sort of where the whole system needs a little bit of a rejig and a rethink to think how can we all best work together and not as a forward line, a midfield and a defence. How are we all going to combine to make sure that we're protecting each other and allowing to get the best out of each other? Because at the moment, that's just not clicking. Yeah, and so problems with the forwards, problems with the midfield that are kind of exacerbating each other's problems. And then the defence playing as badly as it is at the moment. It's a kind of perfect storm. Jamie Carragher tweeted last night that he said it reminds him of Wenger's Arsenal going from a powerful and pacey team to a technical one. In the end, Wenger's Arsenal that were technical did reach a Champions League final and, but for sending off, might have beaten Barcelona. The powerful and pacey one was the one that was sweeping all before them.
it's obviously a completely different era. It's not to say that they can't be successful, Liverpool, in the future under Klopp, but what do you think needs to happen? Do they need reinforcements now, or is this batten down the hatches, get to the end of the season and reshape the squad structurally significantly in the summer?
Yeah, and although I've been quite negative, I actually do agree. I don't think we're a million miles off where we need to be, but at the moment the performances just haven't been good enough. But when I say we're not a million miles off, that's just because I think all that would really need to happen in the short term, at least in January, is to bring in another midfielder. I think one midfielder now would solve a lot of problems if they were the right person, which is obviously the sticking point, because who exactly do you bring in to the midfield in a January transfer window when a lot of clubs aren't keen to let their players go? But I genuinely do think that would help so much, because the midfield are just being overworked. They're being played through far too easily. And I think that a lack of confidence is just really breeding a lack of confidence at the moment. So once those results start coming, I just do have more confidence that things will start clicking in place a bit more, because they won't panic so much in individual situations. You won't see them sort of scrambling, giving the ball away cheaply. So I don't think it's like a huge long process where this is going to go on for months and months and months. I think there is little fixes that can be made that will make a big difference. But the biggest one for me has to be a midfielder coming in January.
You touched on that there. I mean, the individual mistakes, because we often, when Liverpool lose a game like last night, the performance is so shambolic. We talk about the macro things, the system and decisions that Klopp maybe could have made differently. But you see the ball that Tsimikas, inexplicably puts across the box at one point in the first half. From Alisson's kick out, Harvey Elliott hopping over the ball, and it leads to Brentford's second goal. Sometimes with this Liverpool team, it's just individual errors, isn't it?
Yeah, and those things I guess you can't always iron out. There's always going to be individual errors. However, I think when it's a lack of confidence that's starting to set in, you do panic a bit more in those individual situations, and you just you don't look forward as much either. I think Liverpool used to be so good at getting the ball, looking straight forward, playing the forward pass. And now, because there is a little bit of okay, what should I do? I don't want to do anything wrong individually, so I'm just going to do the easy thing. And sometimes that actually leads, ironically, to a bigger mistake and us conceding a chance, or even worse, a goal. So those individual errors have to be ironed out, and sometimes, pinning the blame on sort of a young Harvey Elliott isn't fair, and that's why I do think that a bit more experience, it's hard what I'm saying, but someone a bit more experienced, but also not old as some of our other midfielders is key. But yeah, those individual errors are definitely doing Liverpool a disservice on the whole, and those things I think are just coming from a sense of panic and not wanting to do anything wrong when results and performances haven't been going as well as they should have been.
Darwin Núñez took his goal very, very well, Harriet, albeit it was disallowed. So unfortunately for him, the search for hitting the onion bag goes on. But he's not really a problem. Do you feel he's going to come good, Darwin Núñez? He's clearly getting into the right positions. Yeah,
I don't really have any concerns about Darwin Núñez, because I think that he's trying really hard, and I think you saw as well in that in the games that he's played that he's always in the right positions, like you just mentioned. He's always getting into the right areas. He's always finding the pockets of space. It's just sort of the finishing, but we saw that in the first half of the season actually go really well. He was finishing really good chances and some difficult chances as well. So I'm not particularly concerned about that. And I do think once he starts to find the net, then he'll just sort of open the floodgates and he'll be prolific. But yeah, I'm not actually concerned on the whole about him. And I think especially with Cody Gakpo coming in and allowing Núñez to sort of play through the middle in his best position and maybe interchange with him a little bit more, that relationship might work well. And he just needs to be able to combine with Salah a bit more. And then again, that's a system thing, with Salah seeming to be dragged quite far out wide in quite a few games before the World Cup and not sort of getting into the game and being able to combine with Núñez. But on a whole, as an individual, he's not sort of where my concern and worry is going at the moment.
The speculation about Jude Bellingham obviously is going to continue as long as he is at Dortmund and until he signs somewhere. There is relatively strong links this morning with Núñez from Wolves, and we've seen him linked with Tielemans in the past. Is there anybody else that you're hearing Liverpool be linked with in the midfield area?
Not really at the moment. There was quite strong links with Enzo Fernandez, but now that seems like he might be ending up at Chelsea. There was Amrabat as well, who played for Morocco in the World Cup. They were two players that I was heard us linked with. And also Caicedo from Brighton, who for me would be a good option because he has that Premier League experience. I think we could really benefit with someone sort of ready-made now who's had the Premier League experience and could come in and just slot in straight away and do a job. So yeah, a few players there, but obviously the one that keeps on sticking is the Bellingham link, which is just not for me going to happen in January.
Harriet, great stuff as always. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you.
Harriet Pry, of course, of the Anfield Wrap. OTB AM at 9:09 AM on this, the 3rd of January. Just starting to get used to the days of the week and what day it is.
And the year.
And the year. It's Tuesday and it's 2023. Thank you. OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what we've got on OTB Sports Radio coming up across the rest of today from 1 o'clock. It is OTB Gold with Ronnie Delaney, the Olympics legend. 3 p.m. it's Dadcast. From 4 o'clock, we have a career retrospective with the former Irish international striker Stephen Elliott. 6 p.m. OTB Gold, Jerry Eisenberg on Ali. And of course, from 7 p.m, the usual OTB Live with Joe Malloy in the hot seat. You can follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the best in the latest sports content. Up next, darts. The referee, Jack Langston, is on the line ahead of tonight's World Darts Championship final between Michael van Gerwen and Michael Smith. First, though, here's more on Pele. John Giles joined us over Christmas to pay tribute to the iconic Brazilian.
And John, desperately sad news, and it's hard to really comprehend a world without Pele, because for many people, for so long, he was the very embodiment of football. What were your impressions of Pele down through the years, and where does he rank for you in terms of the world's greats?
Well, sad to hear the news, Richie. I don't think there was anybody better than him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
He was as good as any. What I found with all the great players, Richie, none of them are the same. You know, if you look at Messi today, you look at Ronaldo, you know, all these great players over the years, none of them are similar. They all have their own individual greatness, and Pele certainly had that. He was in my time. Well, I never played against him, but I'll tell you a story. I met him one time, but you know, he was only 17 when he played in the World Cup and won it. I think he won it 3 times.
Yeah,
and he was brilliant. I mean, he wasn't a very big fella, but his heading was brilliant. I mean, he was a real striker. You know, he was beautifully balanced, great header of the ball, great shot of in both feet. And a really first-class individual team player.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Who is this serving and what is the end goal would be kind of nice to know.
The Koigig Pod on OTB Sports.
I feel like we haven't had quite enough Irish bias this year, so I am quite happy to see this.
They were awesome. It's true what Emma Carroll said. Liverpool are coming into their own, right?
Keep up to date with all the WSL action every Tuesday and subscribe to the feed in the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
12 minutes past 9 on this Tuesday morning's OTB AM. Time to touch on the darts now. Of course, the PDC World Darts Championship final taking place tonight at Alexandra Palace in London. We have Michael van Gerwen against Michael Smith. Delighted to say at the darts referee, Jack Langston, joins us on the line this morning again. Morning, Jack. How are things?
Morning. Yeah, all great. Thank you. How are you?
Keeping well. We might get to the semi-finals from last night in just a minute, but I did want to touch on the Gerwen Price. I don't know if you call it controversy with the ear defenders the other day, but I mean, have you ever seen the likes of this in darts?
No, I mean we've seen the small little in-ear plugs that have been used a few times by players, but yeah, not the full big ear defenders. That was odd. Yeah, very weird.
Can you understand from Gerwen Price's perspective why he did it? I mean, I haven't been in the crowd in Ali Pali, but from what I hear, there can be some individual chants and little things called out that maybe gets to certain players more than others.
Yeah, so I put a tweet out yesterday, just seeing if there was anyone who followed me who'd gone to the darts, and I think a lot of people, they watch the darts on TV, and obviously we're listening to sort of like a slightly edited, slightly like improved product to what they're seeing in real life. And from what I've heard, a lot of people seem to think that the audience is muted a little bit on TV. So it's actually a lot worse in the venue than it is for us sat at home watching the darts. So yeah, I mean, if Gerwen Price is getting a load of abuse and stuff, and he wants to stick some headphones on, yeah, I don't know if the big ones was the way forward, and then to sort of like joke about with the crowd straight after. But yeah, I do think he does get quite a bit of stick and stuff, and maybe it does get to him a bit too much. So I can understand why he's done it. Yeah.
Is he particularly prone to the abuse because of, I guess, his celebrations? He gives it the large one after some big legs.
Yeah, it's very pantomime-y, I think. But I do think sometimes it just gets him a little bit more than some other players and stuff. But yeah, it all started a few years ago when he had a bit of argy-bargy on stage with Gary Anderson, and since then he's kind of been a bit of the bad boy of darts. And yeah, he's been put into a pantomime situation, and he is the person who gets the most stick from the crowd. So yeah, I think everyone's got a limit, and he's certainly starting to hit his now.
I guess the positive slant from it for the PDC and for darts organisers is it gets people not interested in darts talking about darts, because you see it in snooker as well. When Ronnie O'Sullivan has a moment, or Jimmy White has an argument with a referee, all of a sudden people outside the sport are talking about it, and they're going, "Did you see Price and his ear defenders the other day?" So from that perspective, at least it drums up a little bit of interest.
Yeah, I definitely think it's good for talking points, but I don't think Price likes it now. I think he's got to a point now where he's kind of going to have to make a decision at some point how he goes forward with this, because it's not going to go away. That's the problem. Unless something really drastic changes, it's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. So I don't know how he fixes it. I don't know how the PEC are going to deal with it in the future, but I just can't see it getting any better. It's only going to get worse and worse from here.
He's talking, Geraint Price, or he certainly did that night after the match and the 5-1 defeat, about never going back to the World Championships again. I mean, this is all talk and bluster, isn't it?
This is what, sorry?
It's all talk from his perspective. I mean, surely he's going to come back to the World Championships. He's not going to... I'd imagine his Instagram post was quite reactive.
Oh, okay, yeah. I hope so. I mean, I'm a big fan of Geraint Price. I've always liked Geraint Price, and I think the antics and stuff is really good. It's really good for the sport, but it's obviously starting to take a bit of a toll on him. But I would imagine he's going to be coming back, and he's going to be playing regularly still, and because he posted about never playing the World Championships again, and I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not him, so I can't really say. But I hope he comes back and continues playing. Yeah, definitely.
We might touch on last night's semi-finals for a moment, Jack, because I mean they were fairly one-sided affairs. The first one a little bit closer, had gone 2-2, and Gabriel Clemens looked like putting up a bit of a fight against Michael Smith, but in the end it was a 6-2 win for Smith, fairly comfortable. And you look at Smith's stats: 5 ton plus checkouts, 19 180s. A pretty dominant performance for Michael Smith, and something for Van Gogh to maybe think about ahead of tonight.
Yeah, I thought the first game was really good. Clemens, he had a chance to go 3 sets all, and then it was a break of throw, and he went 4-2 down, and then from there it just kind of snowballed. I think Smith hit 2-11 darts in the next set. He was just on fire. He played really well. I'm really happy he's played well towards the end of the tournament, because he's played all right this tournament. He's not been anything particularly amazing or special. He's just been fairly steady, and he's beaten whoever's in front of him so far. But for him to go into the final now in some pretty good form off the back of a really good semi-final win against Van Gerwen, it kind of makes the final a little bit more interesting. If Michael Smith had won last night with a 90, 91, 92 average and sort of won like 6-4 or something, or 6-5, I'd be a bit worried that tonight was going to be a complete blowout, and it would just be 7-1, 7-2 Van Gerwen, and it's going to last maybe an hour and a half. But yeah, I thought he played really well last night. I'm looking forward to tonight. And then Van Gerwen, like I said last time, Van Gerwen does Van Gerwen things. And he's just so good. He's such a good dart player. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's final. It should be really, really, really fun.
Is there anything to be said for the fact that Smith has been in this position a couple of times before? It's not his first final. He's been there twice. He's not going to get overawed by the occasion because of that experience from before. And look, he's got his PDC win under his belt as well. So from that perspective, is Michael Smith, do you think, in a different headspace than he was in the previous 2 finals which he lost?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the last time he was in the world final, other than half an hour's worth of unbelievable darts from Peter Wright, he probably should have won his last one. This time, I think Van Gerwen's playing a little bit better than Peter Wright did the last time, so it's going to be even more difficult for him. But yeah, I think there's a chance. I think he's going into this game a little bit more experienced than he did the last time. He's got that major win as well, which is a big deal for him as well. He's always been someone who's just kind of fell short at the final hurdle, and he gets a lot of stick for that online as well. So for him to finally win his first like proper major title, and now he's in the final of another one, almost straight after. Yeah, I think he's got a chance. I think he's going to be in the right sort of headspace. He's going to be focused. He's not going to let the situation get too much control of him. But I'm looking forward to it. I think he does well. I don't think he wins, but I think it's going to be a good game.
Van Gerwen's stats. I mean, you mentioned how impressive he's been in this tournament already, and I mean his quarterfinal and semi-final performances were just to say they were impressive will be saying putting it lightly. But 108.28 average in that semi-final last night, over 50% double success, which is where you need to be really to win World Championships. And Van Gerwen has 3 of them in the bag already. He's going to be so hard to beat if he performs anywhere close to how he's done in the last couple of matches.
Yeah, he's going to be. He's as close to near impossible to beat at the moment as anyone. 108, 109 averages. Like you have to play unbelievably well for like an hour and a half just to have a chance to beat him, or just to have a chance to sort of go level with him, because he's just so good. I do think Van Gerwen wins tonight. He was my pick at the start of the tournament. We're at the final now. 2 players left. He's still my pick. I just hope the game's competitive. I hope both players play well, and I hope we get fireworks all the way through the game. And I just hope it's a close game. If it finishes 7-1, 7-0, something like that, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed, but we'll see.
And the way Van Gerwen's talking after the match last night when he's asked, can Michael Smith stop you? And his response, he's not going to stop me. No one's going to stop me. Like, it's quite enjoyable to see a Michael Van Gerwen with this confidence. Nothing new, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a couple of years now where he's not the world number one. He's not the most talked about dart player in the world. And I think he doesn't like it. Well, he definitely doesn't like not being world number one. So yeah, I think he's come here and he's gonna try his best to make a real statement tonight, and get his name back up there. If he wins tonight as well, he becomes world number one. If Michael Smith wins tonight, he also becomes world number one as well. So they're both playing for title of the best player in the world, plus world champion, plus loads and loads of bragging rights and stuff. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really, really good game of darts, hopefully. The standard's going to be high. I can guarantee Van Gerwen's going to play well tonight. So hopefully Michael Smith does the same. And yeah, they're playing for a lot. It means a lot. And £500,000 as well. That's not a small amount of money. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be good.
Yeah, the prize money's not bad whatsoever. I'm a really big fan of Dimitri Van den Berg and the... I guess the atmosphere he drums up when he's coming on, and the dancing he does, and all the rest. There was a moment during the match with Van Gerwen yesterday where he turns around in the middle of one of his throws, and is really, really not happy with Van Gerwen. It appears encroaching on his space. Is that something that you expected to see with Van den Berg? Because Van Gerwen reacted a little bit and kind of told him where to go.
Yeah, I think Van den Berg he does wear his heart on his sleeve. I think if his issue, Van Gerwen said in an interview after that, apparently his issue was not the encroachment into the inclusion zone, but it was more that he thought that Michael was stamping while he was walking around the stage. So, well, either way, whether the issue was him getting too close to him while he's throwing, or it was that he was stamping and stuff, he should have brought something up to the referees, and they should have had a word. And it didn't really look like, certainly not on stage anyway. It might have happened behind the stages, but it certainly didn't look like that was the case. So I think if you've got an issue with your opponent in such an important game like that, semi-final of the World Championships, you've got to stop the game. You've got to speak to the referee. You've got to try and have at least your own peace of mind that Van Gerwen's been spoken to about it. But I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened. But yeah, you've got to kind of stand up for yourself a little bit there and say something. Yeah.
It's a dangerous thing, though, Jack, isn't it, to do against Van Gerwen? Because sometimes if you GM up or get involved in a bit of verbals, it can have the opposite effect. Like straight away after that discussion with Van den Berg, I think he hits a 170 checkout, and it's like, there you go, I'm having some of that. So Van Gerwen is a dangerous man to rile up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the 170 was really nice, but at the end of the day, I think he won. I think he only won 4 legs last night. I think it was 18-4 in legs last night. Van Gerwen was just far too good, and Dimitri just didn't look like he was ever in the game. Really, he kind of once that 170 went in, you kind of thought, okay, here we go, and it just never really happened for him.
Finally, Jack, if Van Gogh wins tonight, which looks the likely result based on form, where does he rank in terms of the all-time greats? Because you look at the likes of Phil Taylor and all the greats over the years, Bristow included. He's up there now, you'd imagine, if he gets a 4th world title.
Yeah, he's been as far as greatest of all time. He's been my number 2 for probably a couple of years now.
Right.
And if he wins tonight or loses tonight, he's going to stay number 2. I feel like in this day and age, obviously Phil had 16 world titles, and I don't think 16 world titles in today's game is possible at all. But I think Van Gogh needs at least 8. He needs at least 8, in my opinion, to get to that sort of potentially having a real good argument that he's the greatest of all time. But yeah, 4 tonight, potentially halfway there. I think there's a chance that maybe in 10, 15 years we might be talking about him genuinely being the best of all time. Some people do now. I personally don't. I've still got Phil Taylor as my GOAT. But yeah, I think if he keeps doing what he's doing, he keeps winning how he is and how he has done this year, there's definitely an argument for it, 100%.
Jack, great stuff. Enjoy the match tonight. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Jack Langston there at the Darts referee.
All right, 25 minutes past 9 this morning. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A quick tweet here from Gary Neville. Are Chelsea paying €127 million for Enzo Fernandez? That's one hell of a price. A very good player, but bloody hell, it does seem as if the Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea is very close to being a done deal on the 3rd of January 2023. Phil Egan's with us. Phil, good morning to you.
Morning, lads.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Year. Gary Neville's a bit right here, isn't it? It's a lot of money.
Yeah, but Benfica are making a habit of this, of getting some good returns for small investments that they've made. Obviously, they cashed in on Darwin Núñez very quickly, and this is even quicker. And look, people would have heard of Fernandez before the World Cup, but obviously he announced himself on the world stage then when he came on and scored that great goal against Mexico, and then he was an ever-present in a World Cup winning team, so that is going to add to your value. But yeah, there's a lot of really good midfielders out there, but that is a serious price tag.
That was your point, wasn't it, with Rashford? Like after a major tournament, if a player does well, you should probably cash in. Benfica are the perfect example of a club that does that year in, year out.
Yeah, and there they are. They're still in the last 16 of the Champions League. This is the way they're built. Obviously, Joe Felix was there as well. They cashed in on him, and look what's happened to him since he left. It doesn't, you take a risk with such a big price tag. But Chelsea, it was just interesting actually. Keith Tracy was part of the commentary team at Nathan the other day for the Forest Chelsea game, and I'd have to kind of agree with what he was saying, that I don't think Graham Potter will be the manager that gets the best out of Enzo Fernandez, because I don't think he's going to be there that long.
Well, I mean, maybe he could get the best out of him. What is the best out of him? What is the ceiling here for Enzo Fernandez? So just to clarify, right? They're going to pay 112 million sterling. It's the first ever Premier League deal over 100 million for a single player. They're paying 6 million over the release clause, so they can pay in installments, which is still, I mean, you still have to pay the money, right? It's just like you're amortizing it over a
but
longer period of time.
It's easier. As somebody who likes a direct debit, I can tell you it's a lot easier to do it that way. But they're getting a really good player, and it's how does he cope with how quickly things have moved, how he's gone from being in this Benfica team to people starting to talk about him, then going to a World Cup, winning a World Cup, now this massive price tag, and going to new surroundings as well, and going to a new league.
What type of player is he?
He's just an all-round bloody good player in terms of his technical ability in tight spaces. We've obviously referenced his goal against Mexico. He has the ability to score good goals as well. So, and what we've seen as well, I know you were talking about Liverpool earlier, where for a good player or a good midfield player in the Premier League, you have to be dynamic, and he has all those attributes. So, because I think people were, if you were looking at Liverpool last night, you'd say they just lack any energy or legs, whereas that's something he doesn't lack in that department. And They are, like, Chelsea have good midfielders anyway. N'Golo Kante, they want to tie down with a new contract. Exceptional player, but has become more injury prone over the last couple of years.
31. Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of Kovacic, his technical ability. Jorginho, maybe he's one that they move on now. He has, you know, it took him a while to be accepted by Chelsea fans, because when he came in, he was, you know, just seen as somebody that came from Napoli. He was part of the package, wasn't he?
Liverpool had been linked with Enzo Fernandez, and Jamie Carragher's kind of talking after the match last night that they have no chance of top four without a new midfielder.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah.
Who like Mateus Nunes is rumoured. Bellingham's name.
Like Nunes can't sign in January though.
That's
because
the point.
He would have played for 3 clubs in a year.
Yeah.
So they're an absolute shambles in terms of what they're trying to do. Where they've signed, and look, this is all stuff that Jamie Carragher said, that they've only signed Thiago's the only permanent signing they've made in midfield in the last 4.5 years.
Well, they put a lot of faith in the kids. That's the other thing they've done. They've given game time to the kids, and they haven't proven to be Premier League winning talent just yet.
No, and it's a lot to put on kids.
Yeah,
they might well with kids.
They might well turn out to be really good players at 25, 26, 27, but at the moment they're being asked to behave and perform like 26-year-olds who have, you know, 300 games. Fernandez has played 108 senior club appearances.
Yeah.
That isn't like their appearances. So, you know, the first 10 or 15 of those might have been like off the bench. And
but he's going into a team with Chelsea. Chelsea's a big issue with scoring goals in terms of they've got some really good attacking players, but I even felt under Tuchel that they didn't have that cohesive.
Timo Werner was a flop, right?
That they had. And Graham Potter doesn't want Aubameyang there. He wants, you know, that he's inherited that squad. But he's inherited some really good players, and midfield I think is one area that Chelsea are good. So I think for somebody like Enzo Fernandez, it's easier for him to settle into that team than is if he came into Liverpool. Liverpool seem to be talking about it. It seems to all be on Jude Bellingham. Honestly, I think Liverpool need 3 midfielders. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear Liverpool fans' thoughts on, would they rather 3 new midfielders or Jude Bellingham? Ideally, they'd want Jude Bellingham plus 2 midfielders, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So if it was an either or, they're so short in midfield. They've absolutely no legs in there. Yeah. So when I saw that team last night, having watched the Leicester game, like that result at Brentford last night, that is not a shock.
No.
Brentford did the exact same thing to them last season, and that would be my concern as well. For like as good a job, amazing a job as Klopp has done, how was he not prepared for what was coming last night?
To go back to Enzo Fernandez, where will he play? Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Is he a 3 midfield? Is he like, can you play him as part of a 2? Is he available in all of those?
Yeah, it depends what Potter wants to do. Chelsea have changed between 3 at the back if they go 4. But yeah, he can play in any of those roles. As I said, he's comfortable in advanced areas. You know, he's good enough at closing down opposition players as well. So I wouldn't have a worry about him in any position. He could be a playmaker in terms of a deep role playmaker, which I mentioned Jorginho as well. So yeah, I think obviously as well, if you're paying that much money for a player, you'd be hoping that he could play anywhere in midfield.
Yeah. It's mad because like I don't think anybody thinks Chelsea are going to be in the top 4, or certainly.
Right now, you wouldn't.
Not the way they're playing at the minute.
In the conversation at the moment, it's like, is this? I mean, one player in January. It's early January. In fairness, if they manage to get this done right now, he'll have plenty of time to make an impact. Obviously, the season is much earlier. There's still loads more games than there is. Like, is this a big enough signing for them to be back in the top 4 conversation on the back of this one signing? I mean.
Possibly, but again, I think
it's a lot of money if he isn't.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Chelsea have shown in the past that missing out in Champions League football isn't a big deal for them. I know, look, there's new ownership in there, but what we've seen since they've come in already is that money isn't an issue.
Yeah.
There's still.
I do have to say though that like this is the stereotypical new owner who doesn't understand football mistake, where a kid has an incredible World Cup and you're like, I want that. Give it to me now. Yeah. Give it to me now. We can play him and 11 other players. It's going to be great. This just has the hallmarks of Todd Bowley going, I've got all this money in my pockets, they're bulging, I'm gonna spend, it's 112, I'll give you 118.
But I think regardless of how this signing works out, they still have a really good squad, and if they can get themselves a good front player, we're led to believe Nkunku's going to be the guy that they bring in. So Chelsea are always going to attract good players because they pay big money.
Top dollar.
As I said, I don't know how. It'll be interesting. You mentioned Champions League. If Graham Potter doesn't get Champions League, is that the end then? Is that it?
But Bowley loves Potter.
Yeah.
They seem to. Well, I mean, they can obviously afford to sack him if they find somebody better. But like,
he might love him, but if they're missing out in Champions League football and Chelsea are getting booed off every week, then Bowley is going to have to do something about it.
One last thing. Cristiano Ronaldo is going to be unveiled at Al Nassr today. Their Instagram following has exploded, obviously, since his arrival. He's obviously chased the money, and good luck to him. But apparently there's a clause, I've only seen this once on Twitter, I have not stacked this up. There is a clause that says if Newcastle qualify for the Champions League, he's going to be able to join them on loan. I mean,
makes sense.
Well, we're in that zone where you can literally make up anything about Saudi Arabia and football and Ronaldo, and people will be like, well, I suppose I could.
Public investment fund money, yeah.
Would it make any sense for Newcastle at all?
Absolutely zero sense. I mean,
doesn't mean they won't do it.
No, do you know what?
Or they'll be forced to do it.
Yeah.
But see, Newcastle have actually got good football people in place now. And this is where maybe they're not going to make the mistakes that you think, because when you see that they had all this money, you think, who's going to be a manager of Newcastle in a few years? Classic mistake would be bring in someone like Jose Mourinho, which would be not good.
Yeah.
A classic mistake would be, oh yeah, let's bring in Ronaldo. We're in the Champions League.
Yeah.
What better way to announce we're back in the Champions League by bringing in Cristiano Ronaldo?
Or to make them globally famous. You know, there's definitely part of the deal with Ronaldo is not about football at all. It's about the power of the brand. And
I think Newcastle Newcastle are ahead of schedule, and like they have a big game tonight where they could actually go up to second place, and they've only lost once this season, and that was deep in injury time against Liverpool. So I think tonight will be a real good indication of where they are, but they definitely are a lot further ahead of schedule, because look, they're not going anywhere. And I think the difference with them and Manchester City is they have a bigger fan base than City did when City started getting the big money in.
Not so outrageous now to suggest that Newcastle United might finish ahead of Manchester United.
Oh, there you go.
Not so outrageous, is it? No, no one's laughing on the other side of the glass there, Colin Bouygues. Good stuff, Phil. Thanks a million for joining us at very short notice this morning to break down the news that it looks like we're going to see a new Premier League transfer record. 127 million euros, 113 million sterling. It's insanity, really. But Enzo Fernandez is going to be the most highly thought of / pressurised 21-year-old. And I mean, how do you come down from winning the World Cup and then go, okay, yeah, I can deal with all this? Either that or he's going to be the greatest footballer of all time. Like, who knows?
Price tags don't matter.
A range of outcomes is on the table here.
It's all monopoly money.
It's never brought up as well, price tags.
Exactly. We're back tomorrow morning with NFL analyst Mike Carlson, who will update us on the horrific scenes last night concerning the Buffalo Bills. Damar Hamlin elsewhere. Keith Wood will join us for the first time this year. Jess Kelly will be getting your gaming thinking cap on for the January sales. We'll have all the reaction to the final of the World Darts Championship alongside 3-time BDO World Darts champion Glenn Durant, plus much more besides. Right now, we're going to leave you with sports journalist Cathal Dennehy's episode, which is sensational. If you had to be there, sit back, relax and enjoy this, and Happy New Year to you all. Welcome back.
It was so unexpected.
You had to be there.
Covering Celtic at that